okay, Shut Up and Skill returns for whatever the episode is now, 6 or 7 or something like that. Whatever. See, I said the thing to. By the way, you all fucking disgust me. The idea that actually grown. In fact, you know what? This is actually a scaled down version that I won't shut up about, that I hate about this industry, which is it's actually supposed to be an industry for people who are following like a digital sport. And in this point, if you ever look at the average viewership, actually the average viewer is something like 26 years old or something like that. It's not even for 16-year-olds or Disney kids, but we all still have to pretend like we're all just catering to Zoomers, who, by the way, don't play the game. They all play Roblox, extraction shooters. You can't, by the way, it's so dated how out of date League of Legends as the youth game is that you can't even say the old complaint, which was they're all playing that bloody Fortnite. They're not even. That's actually now an old game. You would now be the onk if you play Fortnite. So whatever. I said the thing with the 2 numbers that is supposed to mean something, but the gag is it doesn't, and that the secret thing is the parents don't know what it means. But whatever. The point is we're ignoring all that. So KC fans, it's not an episode for you. Well, not. By the way, none of the episodes are for you, if I'm being real, KC fans. Like, there's actually very few fandoms, sadly, would enjoy any episodes of this sort of show, I imagine, because surely all you're doing the whole time is just constantly clutching the pearls. Like, there's no way out, is there? Because at the end of the day, everyone gets one. Like, the joke is, I actually live in a world where, because I get flamed all the time, I actually start to not even realise how incendiary normal things are in League. Like, I can't even believe that basically saying that like Thorin did badly at Worlds was getting like Nymaera backlash. Like, what's going on with that? Like, yeah, it's just like objectively true.
200 comments on that.
I know.
Apparently, like the whole nation of Vietnam now hates me. Like, come on.
What I don't get is I thought even T1 fans agreed on that one, and like Sammy hated Thorin's guts for almost in that one.
I didn't even say anything about anything outside of Worlds 2. It's just Worlds. I basically said Worlds 25 was not great for Thorin. I didn't even say it was a bad player. It was mistranslated. And, like,
I think that's the problem, right? Like, I think that it is very easy to mischaracterize like an argument if there is a translation error, right? Yes. So what matters is how the medium that fan bases that don't speak English consume this content, right? Because to me, this is one of the most this is probably the most nuanced show that I've ever done.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And like to me, the reason why I love doing this show so much is that I can pick an opinion which is objectively correct. Like Janna Top is obviously by far the best champion to watch in pro play, and give my reasoning for it, but also hear the reasoning of other people and give you guys the opportunity to change my mind, which has happened sometimes, right? But the interesting thing to me is not necessarily what the answers are, but the logic that leads you to get to those answers, right? Which I think that is very rare from any shows that I've been on before, right? So I that's what I really like about doing the show. Anyway.
Also, in the modern day, everyone has streaming technology, clipping tools. Here's the thing: if it was really spicy, you'd make a clip of it because then everyone would watch the clip and get even more outraged. If you ever just have to write it as text, I already know you're relying on the fact that when it's written down without like any visual cues, without the content, it just makes it look spicier. So also, it's just like headline culture, isn't it? Like it's easy to make it look terrible when you write it down.
And I'm completely okay with people disagreeing with an opinion like that, right? I mean, you two did, right? You picked 2 different top laners. We had slightly different criteria. I was talking about the worlds. That was actually the winning tournament itself. I wasn't talking about career outside of that. And again, like we made it very clear, it wasn't like these players are bad. They're just the worst of this category of people, which of course is a different spin on it. But as soon as that nuance gets lost, then, people lose their minds. And I think it's a good reminder for people out there that if you are a member of a community and you come in with Storm like that, you are actually representing your community and people will have worse opinions of you after that and your community. If you're coming in swinging very emotionally at this stuff, and I understand this is kind of meant to be incendiary stuff and it's meant to provoke a response, but if you don't come in with the right kind of like emotional kind of level-headedness on that, you can walk away just bringing down your community as well. And like, again, I'm completely okay with people to disagree with me. Just do it in a way which doesn't, make everyone worse off here.
Well, speaking of people who aren't the best, they also aren't the worst, just relative to their peers. What if the first topic was a fan topic? Do you want to submit your fan topic? Subscribe to the Last Nation Discord. There is a channel there, Shut Up and Scale, where you can submit them. So Talon says, can you build a roster for LCK, LPL, LEC, LCS? So he's doing the classic 4 regions. That is capable capable of winning their regions, but then here's the key caveat. He says without players from top teams. And then I'm actually glad the guy did this. This is actually a good note for people submitting questions in the future, because one thing I have to teach people on all the shows where a fan can submit a question is another reason why a host or interviewer is better than you. It's actually just because we know how to phrase the question. So this guy put the key context, which is the limiting factor, because obviously as soon as you say top players, like how nebulous is that? But he's actually defined it. It's pretty good. He says, we'll set that as from teams/players that have not gone internationally since 2025. So basically within the last year and a half, they can't be people who went to an international event. So I think it's actually a pretty good line, because it's going to make it still fun and like challenging. Whereas like, for example, like there are obviously players where right now there might not be a top player, but you know, they were like a top 3 player last year and it'd just be too obvious. So I think actually he's given us a bit of a challenge here, especially because I've got to say, when we go to regions like LEC and LCS, it's going to get trickier. Obviously the other ones is very good players. So let's see where we're going to go on this one, right? Since it's that we're building a roster, obviously this one won't go position by position, except in the sense of within the region. So how are we going to do this? Are we going to do like we each do the top player for the team? Are we going to do a whole team each? How do you want to do it?
Let's do a region by region, I guess. And then, I don't know, I suppose we do it role by role and see what the candidates are, see if we can build it together.
Yeah, I think so. But here's the thing: I just the caveat I'd add for it. I think do the region, then we all say what our rosters are, and then we take it in turns to do the discussion afterwards, just so we see what the overlap is.
Because I also think a problem here is this. I'm sorry. When again, notice we're also learning how we interpret things. When he says to me, "Can you build a roster that is capable of winning?" To me, it's also not just it'd be this top. It has to be that top player to work with this jungler on a team that has this ADC. Yeah. To me, the logic is I'm supposed to be almost simulating that it could actually win. Essentially, he's almost saying,
so we're the managers.
Are we a better GM than whoever the 4th best team is in LEC or something like that? It's sort of, to me, I'm almost taking it like that. If you had the budget and you could have everyone except the top 3 teams or whatever in this case, who would you make? And then this is the roster. So it's upset plus whoever else.
Yeah, I mean, like the
preview there for you.
Well, we might be aligned on that one, Duncan.
Except technically you went to Worlds last year, so I can't be doing that one. You know, it's all good. Yeah, I can't do that one.
No, you've actually...
Yeah.
Oh, poo,
he's done you. Poby's done you. Poby's ruined it again. Fnatic has actually ruined it again, even on something nothing to do with winning. Exactly. So, okay, what region do we start on?
What, should we start LEC? Should we start with that? Let's do that.
Okay.
Because I think my top laner might surprise some people listening to this, but I think that this guy is, well, he hasn't been to Worlds, and I think that he can actually individually stand up with anyone in the region. I think Rooster's a good shout for top lane. It sounds like a mid-table player that is very good in isolation, kind of like does what you want with the matchups with him. I actually think Rooster's been pretty good individually. Who did you guys have for top?
Well, the problem with this one is, has Peter even seen it? This is just a cheat. I'll take Nako.
Yeah.
Now, listen, that, by the way, I didn't technically say the start with LEC, but that is a good way to point out. That's a rare example where his limiting factor actually sort of. So, all right, I'll tell you what I'll do, though. I think we should be generous. That's even though that one technically gets through the loophole. I will just say we all know Nako's fucking insane, though. So it has to be more of like a reach. I think we should take that one off.
I think it's not in the spirit of the question.
I don't think it is.
Well, I mean, the thing about Nak is I don't think Nak can win LEC. Like, Nak as he is right now.
Not hot take point made. I know why he's come up with that.
On the 19th of June, 2026,
on
a team that doesn't have caps on it, I don't think Nak can win LEC. And the reason why I think this is because going back to his interview, right, this is the guy who's supposed to be the leader of a team, superstar player. I think his ego's just gone too far. I think like this guy.
I love it. Okay.
I mean, I've got him here, but I've written in like capital letters in my notes, Nak, but Nako from like the start of 2026 or like the end of
See, that's the problem.
Right?
People don't get this about Peter. They make a mistake where they think he's just a bleeding heart guy who's like, oh, give him a break. Everyone's better than you think. No, he does that with players. I'll tell you right now how you just win Peter over. You just have to do some Clark Kent shit and be like, no, I don't know, boss. I guess I'm kind of not that good. And he'd be like, no, you're brilliant. We'll make it again. But if you ever dare go like, listen, motherfucker, who are you? I'm flexible. Get this delinquent out of my classroom right now. I knew that. It's the way that interview. You've even hinted Peter Dunn's trust. He was the guy going to bat for you, bro. That one interview, you've actually alienated him now. We don't just want you anymore. Holy fuck.
Obviously, I think that
It was a wild interview, I will say. Like, I still don't understand. That's one of those ones, where the kids say, like, you couldn't make me press send on that tweet if you were waterboarding me in Guantanamo Bay. It's like, why are you willingly giving that up for? Like, again, case of intrusive thoughts, just winning over in it. Like, what are you doing? Pressing send on that in the interview.
Be able to, your headspace to do that interview
I know.
has to be so bad that it's impossible.
Because I feel like he did it and thought, like, nailed it. And so one of those, you haven't even did the whole thing, you idiot. What have you done that for?
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, Knack is the obvious choice here. I mean, I think in LEC that there's a decent amount of top laners.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone.
But the question is, which ones will win? Is the thing, right? There are some which are good. Which ones can hold their own versus BB and Canna?
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of the weakness for this question. Actually, I've just noticed this now. Is we're talking win now, right? Not win in the future. Because I mean, there's people that I think had the potential to be able to win in the future. I think, like you say, give me a roster that can win in 2 years. Maybe Trayson. Maybe I go and add him, but do I think now? No, God, no. There's no chance, right? But I think if we're not going Knack, I think Rooster is probably the.
I think that's actually fair because people, sadly, in that team, they had so many games, especially at the beginning of each of the splits, that everyone's wrote off the whole team. And it's like, no, first of all, like, actually, Nuke was all right in a bunch of the games. And actually, I do think Rooster did a good job. The problem is, I think people take both the Koreans, Paddock and Rooster, and put them together at like a very different level of performer for me. So I agree. I actually think Rooster, sadly, is almost Elo held on the wrong roster.
Yeah.
Right. So jungle, I think there's actually a lot of choice. Sure. I think there are people that can work out. So who did you guys have for jungle? I can think of maybe about 4, which I wouldn't mind talking about.
So I'll go first for this one. So the obvious. Well, I mean, the one that I'm going to go first, and this is my pick, is Shio. And why do I say Shio? It's because people forget that he got reverse swept. He was very close to winning a title. He was like one game away from winning a title, playing insanely well and got reverse swept. So firstly, he has the capability to do it. It's not like he's out of range. The problem is with jungle that Skewmond is on the top team, right? So you have to have somebody that is capable of neutralizing Skewmond. And I think that's really, really tricky. So I think Shio, I think Yukino, if you want to go that way. The problem I have with Linkus is I think he's too unstable to win a title. But he has the talent, but I just haven't seen the stability required. So I go Shio. But I'll have carry roles in. I have more hard carries in other positions. Rylak is the obvious other one. But
that's the other one which I would have shortlisted. And I think maybe if you're building a specific team for it, I think there's maybe a world where Isma gets in as well. Maybe I think he's like on the lower end of that bracket. I think any of them are like within the same bracket of if you utilize them well. I could see them having a very, very aggressive early game, having good dragon control, kind of playing to their strengths and making the most out of it. So I had like a short list of like Rilek, Sheo, Isma, and Linsus, like somewhere around there. Then the question is, which one would you choose over that? I guess I'd choose Sheo as he's had more evidence on record for it.
I also picked Sheo because my logic again was if we're building a roster, I feel like it was sight unseen I could put him with other players. I think of him as a more cerebral player. So I actually had Rylak as the other one, but again, I'm using sort of like the more aggressive version of Peter's like Yank. I think it's just too inexperienced. And in his team at the moment, unfortunately, actually he's only played one way where they just play through him entirely. Like, I don't know that you can always do that in League of Legends. Like, I think you have to play all styles eventually. So it remains to be seen what happens when they put the better players around him. I will do. So I think the Sheo one's a pretty slam dunk one. He's actually just a sleeper, isn't he? The joke obviously being so far, we've built the top side of current shifters, so it better get better real soon or we definitely can't win, can it? So whatever. Right, we're going. I will say the mid lane one's trickier though. The mid lane one's trickier.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I want to go last on this one. I want you to all go first. I think I might have just an angle.
Because mid lane in my notepad that I have for this, I just have like 3 question marks of like, is it possible? Is the problem because like if you think you have to get through both Caps and Jojo Pyun on your way to the top, who's actually going to be able to stand in lane for them? I can't believe it. I think I might have to choose another Shifters player. Just say Nuke is the only person that's not going to get just completely blasted in lane. I just don't know. It's either him or Jackie's. It's one of the two.
No, I mean, didn't Humanoid not go international?
Oh, he's picked it. I was going to cheat like that too. I was waiting. That's why I wanted to go at the end. I wanted you to all pick fucking all these mid-ass players and I get to steal Humanoid.
But we just saw Humanoid got exploded in Perth.
Yeah, but Shio's there to hold his hand. It's all right. Don't worry. You got him there.
And I suppose any argument argument I have for that could also individually apply to Nuke as well. It might have to be the Razor Cake or Humanoid. It might have to be, yeah. Unless unless you got an outside angle for Jackies on Nuke.
I would go Oman before. So Oman is an ERL mid, probably the most hype ERL mid right now.
Well, we know they never fail in LEC, so yeah, go on.
No, sure, but what I'm saying is that the options are Nuke. If I'm going Nuke and Jackies, and those are my options, to go with Sheer. So I have to go with either Sheer or
new idea for a short. Peter Dunn's Checkerlad factory. It's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where Peter Dunn each year produces a brand new, definitely super sick mid laner from the LEC that in no way will fail, and
you get a bronze ticket every so often. Yeah. You know, it's not quite good enough to be gold.
I think that there is literal zero chance that you can win LEC against Skumon Caps, right? And you can have like any jungle. You can have like Shio, you can have Rilek, you can have, I think that there's zero chance that Jackies or Nuke can win, but I think that there is a world that Oman can win, and then I think that there's a world that Humanoid can win. It's difficult, right? But I think that there is a world that can happen. If you want me to give you the highest chance, I think you want higher variance players, right? Yeah. So that's why, like, if we're saying win now, maybe it's better to even just go Yukino Humanoid, right? Because, I mean, Yukino has shown that he's capable of playing with the best, and then you get high variance. But this is the difficulty in the question, right? Like, for me, if you want to win in Europe, it's you win in, like, a year from now. And then that's why I put Oman, because from everything...
Okay, your pitch to every team for the last half a decade.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
Tier plan.
Also, by the way, the reason I also do agree on the humanoid one, because I actually don't think we're even cheating on that one. I think people do think he's a playoff failure, so we're being edgy by picking him anyway.
Yeah,
I agree. It's why Peter says, first of all, I think he does have like the high variance ceiling. That's why he tricks you every split. He'll always have a game in every split where he looks awesome. But also, more importantly, this is like a real factor. Funny enough, if anyone, I'm recording this on the day when the Counter-Strike round of 8s, the second set of them happen in the major, and there's actually a matchup very similar, which is this team called Falcons, which on paper has like super team players, is playing the hands down number one team that might be the best team ever, Vitality. And what's funny is, to a fan, because the Falcons team actually isn't even like a convincing second or third best team, their logic is like, oh, who cares? The Vitality team will win. But I always tell them, like, yeah, but you have to understand there's a dynamic that takes place with pro players, and you'll see how this applies to Humanoid, which is because some of the Falcons players are either in the last couple of years considered some of the best players in the world, or one of them, Nico, is like a legendary all-time great player who's still an extremely elite player at times now. The point is, I actually think an element of why Humanoid would have a chance to win is because, I'm not joking, one, he actually still probably thinks he can win that match. That's not a small factor. The problem I have is this. I think if you put Nuke on a lie detector, he'd fail and say he would lose the caps every time. I think he would have to admit it, bro. I think he's been beaten down too much, and his style isn't particularly high variance. And then the other reason why is, and this is actually a significant reason, it's the opposite side of it. I also think the difference is Caps thinks he could lose to Humanoid because there's a heritage there. They've played so many times. I'm sure in scrims, every team he's on, it seems like they're fucking wizards, mate. I'm sure he knows he's talented. So I also think that's actually a real detail too, which is someone like a Caps, whoever Peter names from the RL, Caps isn't even going to fucking look on the bottom of his shoe when he finishes stamping him out. Like, I actually think he would respect Humanoid on some level. You know what I mean? It would allow you to have some chance to get in the game.
The funny thing is, when you're talking about variants, my immediate thought was, well, that's leaders like theme tune, you know, variants. Whoa. Yeah. But we saw how obviously that didn't materialize this split either, and that's the difficulty, right? When we talk about a bunch of these players, which is like, how much do you value stability over variance? And if you're going to win LEC, you need an amount of it. I think initially when I viewed this question, I thought, maybe I put variance in jungle instead, take it away from mid lane, because I think that, you know, mid lane is such a lost condition versus people like Jojo and Caps if you're going to fight your way through the top of the LEC. But yeah, I could see myself going for Humanoid despite some of the recent playoffs failures. But if you're going to have Humanoid in mid, that kind of like, he kind of comes as a package deal now. Where do we feel about, you know, Kazi on the top players list? Does he also manage to slip through like Narco, or what's the? I
feel like that's a fairer one to pick though. If you pick Kazi, because I don't think he's ever been as ironclad. The real problem is, up until these playoffs, almost everyone thought Narco was like the best, at least best top. Most people said best player in the region. Like I think he was pretty hyped. So I think Kazi's more of like I don't think everyone would pick Kazi. I think there's more people you can pick for this one.
Okay, well, in that case, I think Kazi has to be on the shortlist. Is there anyone else for AD carry that you would consider? Obviously, we've said that, you know, Upset went international last year, so technically doesn't qualify. Who else even qualifies for AD carry?
So there's, again, really good ERL options. Harpoon is really, really good. Like I would say Harpoon will play in LEC next year, 100%. Like I don't know if Oman will play in LEC next year, but Harpoon is somebody you should watch. He's not Khalees level. He's probably like super potential level, which say what you want. Super has won a title, right? The only other person I can say besides Kazi is like you want to do Noah Jun as a package.
You could.
I think there's an argument.
I don't hate that. I have to say, I do think that is a decent bot lane.
Just that Noah took a bit of a nosedive to. Well, I suppose this place was better. It's just that he was way better split 1 and bits of last year than I think he was in this split, to the point where, in fact, Gilhoto got kind of like hot mic'd on the broadcast and said, "Yeah, Noah's probably just our worst player right now." Like live on broadcast. He was like, "Oh shit, is this live?" That's one of the. Yeah, I think he laughed it off pretty well. But yeah, I thought that Noah. He's lost a little bit of faith from me in this split, although obviously him and Jern work really well together. That's not a bad idea.
I'm personally going to go a different route, though. I'm going to go with Ice. I actually think to this day, it's just because he hasn't been as good as he wasn't this good this year. I think what an actually underrated player the whole time he's been in the LEC. Like, just one of those players where it's actually the dream of what people think they get when they sign a Korean. Like, he'll just sit there, say yes, sir, and just play the game. And it doesn't matter what game condition you create for him, he'll just try his hardest. I think it's actually like a very admirable player. And I look at some of the squads he's been in. I can imagine from the outside, they can't have been like happy environments where everyone was having a great time and getting along. It looked like, and also I've just seen him from the beginning of his career when it looked like he didn't even have very good English, still performed very well in the game. Like, that's why I say he's quite admirable. I think he's just a good player, man. I think you just pop him in the ADC. You can play in a lot of teams.
This raises an issue, though, because if we choose Rooster top lane, you can't have, like, Noah Jun or Ice Jun as a bot lane, because you have 3 Koreans who don't have European residency.
But
so
I wasn't going Korean for support anyway, though, so it's good. It's all good.
Okay, all right. Because for me, because I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and come back. Sure. I think I would pick Jun. So for that reason, I actually wonder if I take Yopper. You know, he's really versatile. Okay. I like that guy a lot. I like Yopper quite a lot. He opens up a lot of draft angles. I think in a world where I wasn't picking Jun, I would pick... I would pick someone like Noah or Ice. I think they're both on the short list. I did talk about Kazi as well. I think but I did just say with the humanoid argument, do you take humanoid and Kazi as a duo to fix the vibes? So my question now, I'm just weighing this up to internally, because again, thinking this on the fly. Do I pick Yopper for someone I believe is a bit more versatile? Do I pick Kazi for the benefit of humanoid? I think I actually have to pick humanoid Kazi because that's been a proven kind of like make or break point for humanoid. So I'm actually going to walk that back on Yopper so you can hear my thought process on this effectively. Walking back Yopper, and I'm going to put Kazi in there because it benefits humanoid. And I think anything which benefits humanoid so he isn't, running it down versus the highest mid lane competition is really important.
I'm going to say that you. So Nymaera, you get bonus points for trying to make it work with Rooster. But the rules of this question, I'm going to go with the letter of the law on this.
Okay, sure.
It's too hard.
It didn't say legal roster.
It does go against. It goes against the technical idea of it. But like, in order to make this work, I'm gonna stick to the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law. So that's the only way that I think I disagree with you on AD carry. But yeah, I think that there's decent, like in ERLs there are some very, very good AD carries. But if we're purely going with LEC, I think Yopper is good. I think actually one person that Yopper can be really good with is Sten, because Yopper Sten together in ERLs were like an insane laning. Like they had probably the best laning of any bot lane, except maybe Khalees Targamas. No, it was Khalees Fleshy or Khalees I can't remember, right? But except for KCB. But yeah, I think Yopper is a good shout. Obviously, I go with Kazi because obviously humanoid and Kazi are like I will always prioritize my ex players. So it's not a question for me, but there are other options that are respectable in this regard.
My problem is I actually do think Jun is a sleeper, by the way. Like, if people don't know, I think one of the saddest things that happened, I actually think both these moves had to happen. You know, at the beginning of this year, the 2 moves that were meant to happen was Jun to Fnatic and then Razork to GX. I think those moves were both actually fucking fire moves. I think those would have been really interesting. So anyway, but as pointed out, for eligibility reasons, I have Rooster. So what's funny is I actually thought Peter might do this, but he didn't stay steal my picks. It's all good. I don't remember on this roster, at no point does it say they have to currently be good and people have to think it's a good pick. So I don't give a fuck. Get ready for full narrative embrace. I'm taking Trimby, homie. What are we talking about? You know what? You're going to go, Thorin, he talks too much. Have you ever tried listening to him, though? No, actually, he does talk too much. He crowds the comments too much. But my point is, though, I actually think it's also like a really interesting element that adds intangibles to the game, too. And with this squad, this is not a group of people who are going to be scared and fucking count out by him. So I actually think it'd work well. If people don't know, I actually think half the reason he's been kicked off and on these teams is I actually think he's one of those people where you almost have to have the right set of people who want to have like constant comms and people talking and going for, like, if you have that sort of group of people, which I imagine you do on my team, I've got like humanoid and stuff, and then also I've got a bunch of people who are just Koreans who shut the fuck up and do what they say. So I think Trimby completes my squad. There you go. There's my team that'll definitely win.
The problem is, if you then lock in Rooster...
Oh, wait, technically he went international last year because he was on VKS. Oh, it doesn't work, does it? Oh, it wasn't from this region, though. It was from bullshit. You know, surely that one I can have. I'm not being crazy on that. It was from Brazil, for fuck's sake. Come on.
But he was, I will say...
Or LTA,
Trimby but Trimby on Viva Keith, right? The difference between him... They replaced him... what's the name of the guy? CFO... guy, I can literally see his face now.
Kaiwing or something? Was that his name?
Kaiwing, yeah. They replaced him with Kaiwing, who is a world's top 8 support.
Sure, yeah.
Not a top 8 support in the world, but like a world's top 8 support. And the team evaporated in terms of level, right? Like Trimby literally, through leadership, through comms, dragged this team towards, had one of the best performances internationally that Brazil has ever had. And literally just by replacing him for a like leadership type player, team isn't even a top 3 team in the region anymore. So I think there is good argument that if Trimby is in the right setup, but I would say that I don't have Trimby simply because Humanoid and Kazi, I want Humanoid and Kazi to dominate my comms and not Trimby, right? And that's the difference. But Trimby has worked well with Humanoid and Kazi.
And I think if you're going to pick Sheo, I'm just not sure I'd want to pick Trimby just because Rooster, Sheo, Trimby are like the core of the Shifters team, which is bombed out. They lost the Galleons, obviously, in the Online qualifiers as well.
Carry, though.
They did. I mean, yeah, and Paddock has his flaws and his pros. I actually think Paddock is very good when he's given agency, but just outside of that, just doesn't know how to play like a neutral or losing game, which I think is a problem for him. I think I still have to go with Jun. I think I go with Jun because I think he's just a lot more... He is a bit more of an instigator, and I find it really interesting. I mean, there's a chance that there's too many cooks kind of like spoils the broth, right, with Humanoid, Kazi, Jun. But I think if you have... Yeah, I think that Kazi Jun would be just a very creative duo, which I'd find very interesting to watch, and hopefully they'd synergize very well. Mm-hmm. So my overall roster would be, I think, totaling this up, would be Rooster, Sheo, Humanoid, Kazi, then Jun. Then, obviously, we return back to the question, can that win the region? It is a distant maybe, I think. You know, that's the problem. At the end of all of this, I still think like it is highly unlikely that the rosters which we build from this would actually win through MKOI, KC, G2. I think it's still distant. I think there's a chance, and we've seen that from, you know, the core of the Vitality roster doing very well in regular season, but it's a long ask. Which
like I said earlier, I think this will be a weird and more interesting question for LCK and LPL because of the talent level. Yeah. The real problem you have in LCS and LEC is talent is just in the top teams. There's only the odd player who isn't. And because you've made it like go international, you're also taking like some bullshit like when Fnatic made it with Poppy. Like now suddenly I can't do any of those players too. So I think it's made it a bit trickier.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want, so there's two ways to answer this question, right? Am I building the highest baseline team, or am I building the highest chance to win the region, right? And if I'm building the highest baseline,
yeah, you're right. If you ask a totally different question, it is a totally different answer.
No, sure. Okay, well then in that case, then if the question
you could just answer the question he asked, like
sure, but purely the highest percentage chance to win the region, sure. I go Yukino over Sheo. I think there's a chance that team doesn't go to Worlds, right? Whereas I think like
he is a really good jungler. In fairness, that guy is really good. I mean, that's actually of all of like the ERL picks, that's the one I'm like, okay, I'd give that one the most time to hear it out at least. That one.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, my roster was Nak, Sheo, Humanoid, Kazi, and then
but my problem, you're saying that again, like what he just said is totally reasonable. He just said Nako can't win now, but some fucking guy from an ERL can. Like he's just completely changing the criteria every
time. The Yukino bit was okay. I didn't mention any of the rest of it because I can't defend that.
Thorin. So for me, I think if you want the highest chance, literally the highest chance you can get to win right now, I go Yukino. But if you want the best roster that I can build, I don't go Yukino, I go Sheo. Because I think Sheo's baseline and Sheo's average as he is right now is better than Yukino, but Yukino's variance gives them a chance to beat G2, which I think my Knack Sheo Humanoid Kazi Sten roster goes towards it every single time, but I think that my Knack Yukino Humanoid Kazi Jun roster has the highest chance to win LEC because of variance, right? And that's
right. Let's do LCS then, because for this one it's also going to be tricky because you're going to have to like pull up and remember the players that went international last year. So because remember they had the whole thing where some of them were the South Americans. So this will be trickier, I think, actually. So we'll start with top.
So I'll start with this one because I'll start with this one. So Cloud9 haven't gone international for like a very, very long time. Yeah. So you can take the core of Cloud9, which is kind of like a cheat code. For me, I think Cloud9, there's potential in that roster, and again, there's limits to how much we're willing to cheat because obviously LCS is the import region, and can I go with players that were linked to Cloud9 in the offseason or TO in the offseason, right? Because then then I think my LCS roster.
No, I think it's people that have to have played for them or played in NA within that bracket. Because I can't think if people from other regions who were interested in going to NA but didn't go, I don't think that's in the spirit of the question.
That's not in the spirit, okay? Because I would be 100% sure I can win if I can get Tattoo, but without Tattoo,
it's pretty good, yeah.
Because Tattoo was chased by like 3 different teams in the offseason. But chose to stay in Brazil with Fury, right? So
in this one for LCS, I actually wonder if it's better to not go role by role and actually go team by team that we're taking them from, because I think the Cloud9 question, that's the first thing which I ran across in this too, is that because Cloud9 haven't gone international for a while, I think you take 2 players from Cloud9. I think you take Thanatos and Vulcan. I think those 2 you take. I think that Thanatos is like clearly top tier within the region. Of Vulcan, I mean, there is a discussion for support, but I think so many of the other sports you would take have gone international, so you wouldn't take Core JJ or whatever. I suppose there's maybe an argument for Cryogen, I guess. I think I would go with Thanatos Vulcan though. Would you take any different players from Cloud9 because you've talked about them quite a lot, Peter?
So the question then is, am I allowed? How much am I allowed to import and things like this? The only other mid laner that is NA that you can maybe go is like, what's it? I think it's like Toasty Alex.
Darkwings is pretty good. I was thinking about him.
Oh yeah, Darkwings is pretty good. But I mean, I think I would still go. Yeah, Toasty Alex. That's his name. I couldn't remember if it was like Toast or something like this, right? But he's on G2 Nord now. He is an NA player, but basically is in the ERLs, playing at a pretty decent level. The other, so for me, when I was looking at this question, I thought about Kaze and Tattoo because those were the 2 guys that were massively linked to NA, and I have seen both of them do really, really well against NA teams already at the cross regional thing, right? Again, it's kind of hard, but if I'm not going anyone from like if I have to build. If I'm changing people from Cloud9, I think I might go 3 players. I might go APA as well.
I think you have to. Who else can you go for mid? That's the problem, isn't it? And one thing I actually like is if we're doing build a roster, not best player, one thing I actually think APA is underrated for is, look, he was overrated in the sense that he can never truly be like the elite mid in the region because he has champion limitations. That's just clearly an element of his game. But I actually think in teams, he generally looks like he plays within that and understands it. He's not like an ego dickhead who just forces the game. I actually think he makes it work for himself. So fair player. I think I can pick that one.
Yeah.
By the way,
in terms go on. I think that I would consider maybe Darkwings as well. It's APA or Darkwings, one of those 2. I think Darkwings is a good mage player. I think that like he proved himself quite a lot in the EWC qualifiers. I know this playoffs wasn't great, but I think like I'd be happy with either APA or Darkwings. Either of them is fine.
Right, here's what's funny. I think that you all think you know who you're going to pick for jungle, so who would it be?
I actually, if it's about winning the region, I actually wonder if I still go Griffin, because I think that I look at
the obvious one, right?
I think it has to be. Griffin.
Rookie, so he's never gone international.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of a worry with him versus Inspired, but I think the matchup is volatile enough. If we're going to use like the keywords which Peter Dom was using earlier, I think that the volatility of Griffin allows him to beat any other jungler in the region. It might be the loss condition too. It might be, but I think I'd take Griffin.
On current form as well. Oh no, on current form I go Yukino.
You've actually picked him for both regions.
For both of them.
You picked him for both LEC and LCS.
I mean, he is an NA residence player playing in Europe who's actually like really insane, right? So, I mean, it's Griffin on you.
Like, luckily, I said, man's not worse than Peter's, but I've gone with like a Trimby style cheat. So here's what I'm going to do, gentlemen. This is an indictment of the LCS region, because also remember, LCS has 8 teams, so you're also making it way harder for us now as well. Yeah. So I will say this. One of the problems I do think is, I actually think for jungle, they have so little talent. So you know what? Fuck it. I think this technically applies. Bwipo is role swapping to jungle and he's back.
I mean,
he's here to teach that everyone. If I have to do it out of nowhere, oh my God, is that his music? That could work. That in LCS, that could work, boys. LCS.
Yeah, specifically in LCS. You know what? That's actually.
I'm not forcing him to put in LEC. I think that was. I don't think he could beat Skewbon. But you know what? If I have to have like someone with a bit of nous to them, a bit of creativity.
I don't hate it. That's okay.
Because even Whipple's like, well, I'm getting picked. Like, yeah, you're in, boy. Get in the game. Get in the server.
I mean, I actually don't hate that. I think Whipple's that bad a shot, but I think Yukino and Griffin would be safe.
Okay, so we've actually got 3 very different junglers there. I think I'd still stick with Griffin again. Like, I appreciate his volatility and his ability to impact champions like is really, really good. So we have AD carry left to pick, and I believe all of us have import slot available if we want it, based on what we've picked so far. I mean, I guess Berserker went to Berserker went to first stand, so he's not eligible.
Yeah.
God, that actually makes it a lot harder, doesn't it?
It's a tricky one too, isn't it?
Because I was thinking, well, Berserker, I would want to avoid Sven. I don't think he's playing fantastically right now. Jon and Massa have both gone internationally, so you're left with, well, what have you guys chosen? You're left with very little choice there, actually, for out of the top players.
I mean, I think Syed is the only one that I think has any potential from the lower teams. I mean, he didn't have that insane a split, but I mean, it's really hard to look good on that team. But he actually has this guy has potential, right? I don't know if he has like insane long-term potential, but I mean, it's either Syed or get Danny out of retirement, right? Like those are literally your only options, right? Because it's definitely not Sven. Like you're not winning LCS with Sven. Like
my problem is for this one, I might have to just go like Rahel off just pure talent, basically. Like I actually think he has skills as a player. Just again, where am I picking from here? Bevo used to have good mechanics. That was about 5 years ago. Don't know now. Yeah. Maybe just go Rahel for that one.
I think, funnily enough, I'd kind of skipped over Syed, but actually, he's pretty good. From the games which I was watching him, I didn't catch as many of his more recent games, right? Because Disguise didn't even make playoffs. So I didn't catch as many of that. But if you're just going to plug and play an AD carry, I think Syed's not a bad call. Rahel, B-Void. I don't think you're getting a huge delta between all 3 of them there. I think this is the least impactful role because of the pools that we have. Yeah. So I guess I'd just side with Syed because...
By the way... Also, I'm just going to say, I also think in some ways this is almost worse than the LEC one because I actually think none of our teams can beat the fucking... They can't win this region. None of our teams can. None of them can.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, I think that if you kind of extend...
Because everyone's got at least one scuffed one, at least one.
So my roster, which I think can go... So there's always the world's roster and like the highest chance to win the league, right? So my roster, which I think 100% would go to worlds, is like Thanatos, Yukino, APA, Syed, Vulcan, right? But if you give me the option to go for people that are actually in the region and were being pursued, and you let me put Tattoo in that roster, I think then you can have like an actual discussion about like an actual LEC champion.
It's the way he's just so desperately trying to fit players who aren't in the leagues into all these teams. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I know.
This guy would unless this guy will go to NA at some point in the future.
And now you're also getting a sense of what it's like within the teams Peter's worked in. So like the executives are like, wait a minute, what do you mean there's a difference between going to Worlds and winning the league? What are we doing with our team here? And Peter's like, well, I said I would build you a team that would go to it. Why is he like some demon genie that you have to be really specific with the terms and conditions, or he honestly, just fucks you on the loophole? It's crazy.
But the funniest thing is both Thorin, you and I, we've both been on enough podcasts for long enough that we've been the instigator and that we have to say something to just spice things up because, particularly when you're on shows, when you've got guests which are like a little bit hard to get a rise out of, or they're just going straight down and narrow. For somehow, out of all 3 of us, Peter is the one throwing he's the most random shit out there.
He's low key sick. Because the worst thing is as well, he's not even trying to be incendiary. He just believes this shit. He's a true
I believe that Tattoo is MSI is coming up soon, and I believe that Tattoo is a top 6 jungle.
Whatever he says here, it's already absurd, isn't it? I know.
Top 6 or 7. So let's go 7th. Okay.
Fucking hell.
Top 7.
Okay, so let's say you've got like Tien, Shen, Kanavi, Owner, Skewmon, Inspired,
Yep.
like Yike. That's already like
I think
7 I've just
So,
told.
okay, so here is the so we've made the Vietnamese fans mad. Let's make the French fans mad.
Oh,
I think
Jesus.
Tattoo is light years better than Yike.
Whoa! I mean, he's good. He is, but
He's
like,
really okay. That's a clip. That's a clip to go on the clip channel. I think like Yike is a serviceable 7 or an 8 or something like this, and I think Tattoo is like.
and if you're wrong, you will apologize in French live on the channel. You know. Yeah.
Yes, right. But yeah, like this guy. So I know this guy has his head in the right place because he is 19. He could have gone to NA last season. He could have taken TL's money or whatever. But he knows that if he goes and wins in Brazil, he can get even more. Like when his next contract is up for negotiation, he could get more, and he wants to win. And that's how you know that this guy is destined for greatness, right? But yeah, okay. He hasn't played in the region, so I'm gonna go with you. So with Yukino, I think you can't beat Inspired, right? And that's the problem. Like.
Yeah, funnily enough, I think actually out of our 3 picks for jungle, I actually think the Bwipo role swap jungle is like, that's the X factor I think could actually give you the biggest chance to win. So credit Thorin, that's actually a really good curveball, and I think that's Kino. I think that could give you some winning chance.
Okay, let's go then.
next
Let's
one?
move to another
What were your
region.
rosters? Sorry, I talked too much. What were your rosters?
Mine was like Thanatos, Bwipo, Roll Swap, APA, Rahul, and Vulcan.
Yeah, mine was pretty similar. I had Thanatos, Griffin, I had APA or Darkwings sided with APA, and then I went Syed, Vulcan. Okay, so we've got 2 left, right? We've got LCK, LPL. So which one do you want to start off with?
Let's do the LPL because it's the deepest.
All right, LPL. So that's my hometown then. So I actually think weirdly, based off of this playoffs, you can, despite the fact that we have the Super Team BLG, we've demonstrably seen that you can actually win the LPL somehow with a number of mid-tier rosters because of the WE Super Run.
Yes.
Now, because of that, again, I know for the LEC we went roster by roster, role by role. I think initially I'm immediately saying, okay, I want to start out with jungle support, and I want to take WE's jungle support of Monkey and Urha, because I think that they play such a fast perma-grouping, perma-fighting style that it can randomly upset BLG. Now, that didn't work against top esports, so we're coin flipping on bracket a little bit here, that you meet BLG twice in the bracket instead of top esports. But I think Monkey, you're definitely taking him. I think you could probably hear out some different options for support, but particularly Monkey, I think this guy's fucking gold dust for a mid-tier player. I think any LPL watcher knows this guy is the real deal. So initially, that's where I want to start, jungle support. Did you guys have any different ideas for jungle support?
I mean, the only one that so support, I agree with you. The only person that I had on the short list for jungle is maybe Wei. He's had some good games.
Well, jungle, I think LPL has the best junglers in the world right now.
I'll give it that.
I think on the whole, jungle is the one where you can get enough talent to really make a dent anywhere. Because I think that JJ is good. I think that Wei can be good. He's quite spiky. I think Guwon can actually be good enough too. This guy is incredibly volatile, but he's there. Same kind of thing with Croco. Like Xiao Hao's good from EDG. The question is basically which one of these would actually win you versus BLG, and I think Monkey is the one that's actually demonstrably proved this guy can actually win you versus BLG, which is fucking crazy. So that's why I think you have to go with Monkey, despite the fact that LPL jungle is really stacked.
Sure.
And then support.
I am also taking Monkey as well. The problem with that one, by the way, is if people just don't watch the LPL, his recent run almost like it was designed for this question. It's like the one because I'm sorry, I refuse to believe that at least 2 or 3 of his teammates are even that good. Like I think some of them are actually atrocious. So I think it's already a miracle what he's done anyway. So he's basically proved he could do it against these teams. He's already essentially done it. So actually just a freebie. Everyone has to take Monkey for that one. I think I'm not taking Air though. I'm putting Mako there.
Oh, wait, he went into that. Do you count Worlds play-ins last year, though?
No,
listen. Every T1 fucking fan told me they didn't make it to Worlds, mate. That Rookie didn't make it to Worlds. So if he didn't make it to Worlds, I'm taking Mako. Because actually, Mako was sick. If people don't know, the saddest thing about IG this split was basically the jungle and the fucking support were really good, and then the problem is the
really good.
Mid was ass, and then the fucking ADC's just inexperienced, didn't he?
Yeah, because when I was thinking about this question for LPL, because obviously this is the one which is the region which I'm most experienced with, I did think, can I just put Rookie the Shy Mako? Can I just put them in
theory.
there? And I thought, to be honest, I thought that for me that's against the spirit of what I would answer with. Because okay, put it this way: for the word of the question, I think you have to take Rookie. You have to take like Rookie the Shy Mako or whatever, like a lot of IG members from that. I don't think I'm going to answer that just because I want to give a spotlight to some different players. So you took Mako. Peter, did you also take her as well?
Yeah, I took sorry, the one lead support, like W support. But I had a question mark about Wei. I think like Wei's had a really good split. But maybe you're right that like you keep the WE guys together or you keep the IG guys together.
Oh, Wei is really good. He's just very streaky. He's either very good or very bad. So
yeah,
take
I mean that's the high variance, right? Like to provide contrast, I'll go with Mako Wei.
Mako Wei. Okay, so we've got a good split there. Yeah. Okay, so we've got our jungle support down. Right, where do we want to go outside of that? Top lane, quite an interesting one because I think you have to have someone that survives Bin. That is a really fucking difficult thing to do. And I think that there aren't that many top laners that can survive Bin in a non-lane swap meta. So I did go for Breathe, weirdly, just because I think that he has an okay matchup into Bin specifically. Like, he'll take the Gnar away from him in a best of 5, in a Fearless meta, that's quite important. I don't trust many top laners to survive him. The thing is that, like, even the very best top laners in the region kind of just get shit on by Bin. So technically, well, you could take Swian, because technically he's not gone international, because this is being recorded before MSI, right? Technically. You could take him. The only way he deals with Bin is with counterpick, and we saw that in this playoffs, that didn't even save him in finals. It was an absolute shit show. Breathe actually has an okay track record versus Bin. It's better than the rest of the field, so I'm like, you're not winning in that role, but you're not lose condition through that role like many other top laners in the LPL would be.
But my notes here say defer to Nymaera on this. Literally, I haven't watched every single LPL game because, you know, I'm a new parent, right? So I've watched about 50% of the LPL games, and I have not watched a single game where Bin hasn't been shitting on the other top laner. So maybe there is somebody in this goal mine. I've just been unlucky and missed the games, but like I've written. Go with the top laner that can survive. Bin that Nymaera says, right?
There are a couple of top laners. So funnily enough, also weirdly, like NIP's top laner Hoya weirdly steps up to face Bin very well, but I don't think he'd beat the other teams in the top. So Hoya does very well versus Bin specifically. He beat him in a regular season best of 3. This split, he beat him in a best of 5 on TT winter last year. I don't pick him still though because I don't think he's good enough against the field. Because again, like in my thought experiment for this, you're making it through BLG at the end, but you also have to beat a top esports or a JDG on your way there. I think Breathe is probably the best to take on all comers. So I currently have Monkey, Urha, and I have Breathe, which is technically just a better version of what WE have, because Cube, WE's current top laner, is a bit of a tank maestro, but just struggles in lane, and then the jungle supporters try and work their way around him. Thorin, who have you got for top lane? You said Breathe as well?
Yeah, for me, the reason I'm going Breathe is actually very similar logic. If people don't know, probably the best position the LPL produces, if you don't watch the region, you only watch internationally, is actually carry top laner. It's funny, it used to be traditionally Korean, but actually the LPL's done an amazing job. So to me, if you pick in people where I'm trying to aggregate like a mixture of they're good now, I actually think they've even been good when the team's been a bit scuffed, and I've seen them historically actually have a chance. Like this is a guy who can play a fucking Renekton game like anyone in the LPL. He's a very good player. It's him, because the reason why I pick him is I think there's more like recency evaluation. Like if I want to go historically, you can still go reach right back and take fucking the Zekas and the Arleys of the world. It's just the problem is they're not really relevant right now. So I think Breed's the fairest one. I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, and this is assuming we're not taking the Shy, because I know technically it's coming back, and I think that realistically the Shy would be probably the best pick into Bin, because actually has a good matchup versus him. I want to choose Breathe just because, again, spotlight on a different player. So
I also didn't take him because the Shy hasn't played this year. Like by the way, even though you tried to get cheeky since technically they haven't been international yet, I could have taken Tian by that logic, but I'm not doing it. I'm taking Tian as he's come on. It's Tian, and also he just made the finals, didn't he? So I'm taking him out of the equation. He doesn't get to be in there.
Okay. Mid lane. Should we move to mid lane?
Do I get home cute? Because you got Chunmi?
No,
because he went to the first stand last year. He went to everything last year.
But not as an LPL?
Yeah, that's true.
He went to all 3 international events.
No,
last
he
year.
means not from this
as an
region,
LPL,
though.
not as an LPL.
Because Trimby went from Brazil and he went from...
But dude, he went to first stand from the LPL. He was second seed.
Oh, yeah.
So he's been to all of the international events for the last year and a fucking half.
You forgot this year.
I forgot that he was in first stand. I
forgot this year.
Like, I'll give you Yukino for both LEC and LCS.
Okay.
That one I'll let slide. But this one, you're on thin ice.
Yeah, sure. I'm trolling. I thought I was really smart.
This is what's interesting, boys. You are aware, technically, for this one, you can pick 2 of the greatest players in the history of League of Legends.
Yes.
They're both just right there.
I'm trying to wait. Did Xiaohu go internationally last year? He didn't, right? No. Last time he went internationally was Worlds 24. I think you actually. So I know a lot of people like to shit on Xiaohu. I actually think he's been pretty good individually this split. Most of the games where Weibo fell apart this split, and I'm aware that like Weibo now just got relegated to Nirvana. I think you still have to take Xiaohu because he actually, if you look back at early points in the year, against Knights, they had a regular season best of 3 against BLG, which they lost very closely in split 1. Xiaohu was really, really good for like 90% of all of those games, and then had like one slip up which determined the game, which obviously a lot of people went on to blame Xiaohu. But you forget that 90% of the game he was actually better than Knight in split 1. There are very few people in the world which can do that. I think you still have to take Xiaohu. I think across the average of play, he is probably the person that will lose you the least games against Knight, so I think you have to go for him.
Actually, that's the reason why I picked him. What's funny is I didn't even pick Rookie for this one because 1, he hasn't played this year, and then 2, I actually do think one of the real reasons also why Rookie's had a lot of problems in his career is people, if you look at some of these rosters, they don't even look at their built round him. Like, I actually think a thing that's underrated about Xiaohu is, I always make this point, I think actually if they'd have built teams better in the LPL, he had a chance to do like a faker arc where it's like, I'm not actually the best mid laner and I don't even have to win lane, but I just get through the game and then I add shot calling elements and then I allow other people to carry. By the way, one of the most underrated things Faker's ever done, which Xiao definitely does, I think, is sometimes just let yourself be carried. If you know your ADC's a stud and it's his meta, you can get him the pick. You just chill back. You don't try to force the game. Whereas I always say, the thing I both love and also think is a limiting factor for Rookie is like, essentially, if people don't know, one of my other favourite players in sports is obviously Ronaldo. He has the same thing. They both still want to be the best player in the world, bro. They both play like they think they are the best player in the world. On one level, admirable, but as being said, mistaken, you know.
I think the other...
So I quote Bane like it's actually like a real figure that existed. I know, like, whatever, from a movie.
I think the unique problem for Rookie as well is that Rookie I think most top players have a bogey matchup, and I think for Rookie that is Knight. He just has an awful head-to-head versus Knight, even though he's a great player and we all accept that. Just him versus Knight. If you're, again, in the thought experiment, you have to beat BLG sometime down the line. I just don't know whether he can do that. Whereas, for instance, like Knight's bogey player is Scout. Scout is the player that really upsets Knight the most. I know, obviously, he's gone from the region. If I were thought experimenting this last year, I still might have taken Scout, even though he was on his downswing, because I thought, well, maybe that would have worked. I've just had another outside angle as well. If we'd actually
roll swappy Kino, maybe.
Well, so funnily enough, I was thinking actually, one really funny angle.
It'll work.
One really funny angle was roll swap Xiaohu to top lane again and get another mid laner and work like that. But I can't think of another mid laner that doesn't just get their shit stopped by
low-key, you know what? Now you've said that, because you're right, if Whipple's available, that's available. Maybe I'm just going to be cynical. Xiaohu top, Rookie mid. There we go. We fixed it.
There you go. Get both of them.
We're going to win worlds together. We're going to, listen, brother, we're the 2 people no one wanted to see win worlds. Now let's go and do it like fucking brofist.
Can you imagine? That'd be glorious. Like 2021 Rookie.
That would have cooked that year, by the way, if you'd have made that team. Yeah, absolutely.
That would have been
low-key, that's even one of the what-ifs I've realised we never even bring up. Wait a minute, surely the what-if is, what if that fucking time that Xiao went top lane, the rest of the team weren't on some, like, Reapid, please tell us what to do, you're playing StarCraft. What if he'd have just had a world-class mid? Wouldn't he have just actually like had a chance to win everything that year? Like, because I agree. To this day, I always tell people, "Do you even know the name of the mid lane?" You don't. It was crying, but you don't know it. It's all right. I know you don't know it, and you shouldn't. By the way, it wasn't that good. Don't worry about it.
One of the funny things was with the LPL broadcast, the official one. Like, we actually had to remind ourselves that Crime was an MSI winner at points. Obviously, he was struggling in 23 and then 24 at points. We're like, Jesus, like, I mean, yeah, obviously, you look back at the accolades, it is on the record, but it's just not the same level as someone like Xiaohu or Rookie.
Now, here's the thing,
Peter, did you have any...
Oh, go on. Did you have a different one?
No, it's just if Peter had any extra people to add in.
Agile.
Because I actually think if you don't watch the LPL, this is now the spiciest role. Because what you're about to discover is that even though, by the way, technically there are people for ADC eligible, like Gala, MSI, and I don't think any of us have picked him. So I want to see. I actually think there's two edgy rookie names that are both mega that you can put in this role. So which one are you going with here?
So there are two, and you're right that there are two. One is more volatile than the other. I gotta do it for my boy 1xn though. I gotta do it for my boy 1xn. Now this guy is probably going to be consigned to the history books as one of like the most underutilized talent ever, because sadly he has chosen the wrong roster. He has stayed on a sinking ship, and things have gone very poorly for him.
And they should have gotten out this time, but he's stuck again. He's been straight back in hell again. Yeah.
He should have been on a better team this start of this year. That he should have been on a better team going into the next split, which he's likely not going to be. But 1xn, this guy is a wonder kid. I think he's one of those AD carries where if you go late game for late game, he is one of the people that can outplay a Jaculov or at least play toe to toe. I think that AD carries is a role which LPL has always produced an insane amount of, and I think 1xn is like, with him and the other name, which I'm sure will come up in the conversation at some point too, and I'll let you guys reveal that later. But 1xn is a guy that if you want him to play, hyper carry, if you want him to play something which is very AD carry centric, this guy is the AD carry you want to trust. So I think that despite the fact that he's been in Group Nirvana for the whole year, I think he's still one of the best Yunaras in the world. I think he's one of the best Aphelioses in the world. This guy's absolutely insane. I think he needs himself a place on a top roster. This is my way of venting that he has not been on a top roster. God damn it, why is he not?
So this is why I'm curious, because to me it was clear 1xn.
No, because here's the thing, Peter. From this split, the player Assam is actually a fucking banger. Is that who you were thinking of?
Sure, but
I was actually thinking of Leave.
All right, okay.
Thinking of Leave, because I think Leave.
Oh, you could do that one too as well. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think that Leave is volatile enough that he can. The thing about Leave is that I think that he plays up to the occasion, and if he's on a shit team, he plays like shit, and he only really locks in for like the big games. But there's a game which stands out in my mind. Last year, I think it was winter or spring playoffs. Game 2 versus Top Esports, he locks in Jin and only dies on the Nexus, going something like 10-1-14 in a losing game on Jin versus Top Esports as they're on a title run with Jaculov and Kanavi. Like fucking insane levels of play. I think he's by far the best center in the world right now. He stacks better on souls than anyone else in the world at it. He's one of the best smolders in the world too, if that ever comes back. Leave, when he came around in 2023, was meant to be like the player to replace Uzi. He was the person that the Chinese broadcasts were hyping up to be the next like icon of the LPL, and then he went into a lot of controversy about having a burner account in which he flamed his jungler Jirja, and there was some refuted rumors that he was like, having call girls and stuff like that. They were refuted, but it really damaged his reputation at that point. And he's now been bouncing around like EDG and NIP for a couple of years, not achieving that much. But Leave, his upper ceiling is fucking incredible. So I can see the logic for picking him. But yeah, I back to assume he had an incredible split. I wouldn't have picked him before this split, but this split makes him a consideration. That's a good pick.
I think he won a bunch of games himself, mate. He kind of cooked. I thought, he was very good. If people don't know, I would have looked at this NIP roster at the beginning of the split and gone, don't forget about it. They're not even going to do anything. By the way, I actually think my roster's fucking good. I actually low-key think my roster is like a sleeper cook roster, because my roster is Breathe, Monkey, Xiaohu, 1xn and Mako. I actually think that's a really good fucking team. If people don't know, like, the baseline's legit. I haven't really picked anyone with two silly variants that would shit the bed. And also, I've got some like mega veterans too. I think that's a pretty good roster, actually. Again, by the way, it's going to be very hard to ever win the LPL, because right now they have like a fucking all-star team of historical fucking first ballot GOAT players in every position. So aside from that, like if it's just theoretically possible, I think I've done a pretty decent job.
Mine's only different from you in support, because I picked Urha to keep the jungle support together of Team WE. I think there's actually an outside chance he could take Feng Yue, thinking about it, from Top Esports as well, because he didn't go international so far yet. He's qualified for MSI. I think that guy's actually got... I think revisit this conversation in a year. Feng Yue support for Top Esports might be on this list too, maybe.
Okay. I mean, for me, so I didn't know who my top laner was, but now I know my top laner is Dree. I go over Maker.
I see. So in this scale, you are the early game champion, and I am the scale in this conversation. So I'm scaling you up in the top there. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wasn't sure who my top laner was, so I picked like a more experienced support mid, support jungle. But I think if I'm gonna have Breathe top, I need a little bit more kind of lane dominance. I go 1xn. I go 1xn. For sure. I go Xiaohu for sure. And then I think Wei gives you is very streaky, high variance, but I think that's what you need if you're going to beat that BLG. And then sure, I go Breathe. I'm not excited about Breathe, but I don't have an answer to Bin. Like literally, whenever I tune into LPL, I'm just watching Bin like shit on somebody. So like I don't know.
You tend to beat him as a strategic thing rather than an individual lane.
Yeah.
Basically, no one beats him through that. Like, Flondra could beat him in lane swap because he was better in team fights than Bin at that point. If you're just straight up 1v1 laning, you just camp his lane, basically.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've been as, like, my all-time, top laner, so, like,
Okay, LCK.
Right. So LCK, this is one which I really struggled with, folks. So I'm actually going to have to like lean on your guys' opinions for this because I'm not sure you can build anything even close to title winning in LCK. Because the problem is LCK has like 4 teams which go international, maybe 5 every year, depending on who qualifies. So basically all of your top tier talent are just completely out the pool. So can you build a team that can beat T1, HLE, and Gen G, and then like whatever the best of, the rest is as well? Really, really difficult. So where did you guys even start with this? Because I think the only one I had a clear answer to is maybe AD Carry. I think AD Carry, you can take Smash, right? I think that's the one guy I'm like, okay, I could see him winning a title, and I think that while there are other good AD Carries, Smash is the person I could see winning.
I just put I can't. Like I'm not even trying to dodge the question, right? Like I literally just can't. Like it's not possible. I'm not sure. I think I would struggle even if you gave me the rest of the world that isn't in LCK. You gave me the rest of the world. I would struggle to build one that I could say is consistent. Sorry, take away the top 3 seeds from LPL. But so you give me the entire world of players that haven't gone international for the entire year. I'm not convinced that I could beat the top 4. So forget about just LCK, right? Even with access to all those LPL players that we talked about, I don't think I could win LCK.
The problem here is it's debatable if you could win the LCK, because I also think actually that region has another secret detail which is a bit unfair, which is it's probably the least fluked region ever in the history of League of Legends, because everyone plays proper macro and no one really tries like the LPL style of like, let's just play some randy ass shit and take every final. No one does that. So the lower teams don't. They just play correctly and then they're just worse and they lose. And you can make an all right roster, but I don't think it would win. Like, spoiler, first of all, you got to take a whole bunch of D+ players because they're the only ones that didn't go international. So I would have to take Siwoo for the top lane. I think he's a pretty skilled player. I know he just had a fucking nightmare fucking MSI, but he is a pretty skilled player. Again, he's like in the vein of like carry top type guy. Showmaker is mid. That has to be the obvious one because all the other ones are taken, as you guys say. All the other great ones have gone there. It's not technically on D+ now, but I think as ADC, another one you have to think about is aiming. He has the talent for it. Look, he never does it in the playoffs, but he's a very talented regular season player. And then, luckily for support, you can take Lehens. That's pretty cool. That's actually kind of an underrated one. The worst position easily, boys, is jungle, I'm afraid. Because literally, this is scraping the barrel. Because if you look who hasn't been, and I'm not cheating on some loophole, you really are picking between someone like Willer or Gideon or something. Like the jungle one is the one where we're cooked already, boys. Like all the great junglers are fucking go every year. They've got all the best. Also, their region is unbelievable for macro junglers. Like first of all, who would you beat? Fucking hands wise, you're not beating Order. You're not beating Canyon if he plays well.
He's the best jungler in the world right now.
Yeah, exactly. And he obviously goes fast. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, this one's the least plausible one that could win, in my opinion.
The only other, because you mentioned pretty much everyone which I thought about on there. The only other person I thought about was maybe Yukal in mid lane. Because, I know at least he can go toe-to-toe at points. But then again, the problem is so many of these players, the reason why I found this really difficult is that just based on recent form, so many of the DK players just aren't competing up to that level. Because, I would have said, oh yeah, just slam in, Shiwu Lucid or whatever. That's fine. But I don't think that they've played at the level which could win LCK right now. Obviously, they didn't within playoffs. So, yeah, the only clear ones I think are Smash Lehens. Maybe, you can check an aiming as well. I suppose that's not a bad one to put in, but I guess
the only other curveball you can do is, is this team just playing the day after I pick them? Or can I take Scout into the deep jungles of Brazil and give him ayahuasca and fucking figure out whatever psychic damage was done confront him
Oh,
on JDG and heal him of that wound, and then he comes back like the player I used to love, who was a fucking mega player, and then actually we have a chance at that point. Because, by the way, if people don't know, I'm glad Kanavi made it, because the biggest bomber ever is Scout coming back to the LCK socks. Like, I hope that would be the Globe move, that would heal him in some way, be mega, be back on his game, because I've always wanted to see him play at the top level at the LCK, but we're not ever going to see that, sadly, at this point.
That was the difficult thing with his last year in the LPL too, because, like I said, this guy has been just such a hallmark of the LPL and just international play too. It's really sad to see that he's not been able to keep things up at that high enough level. But then again, I suppose the team fell apart, but it wasn't like he was consistently performing either. We saw some flashes of glory, but it feels really sad to see one of these historic players just like lose their touch. And I don't really know what brings that back, because Scout, obviously he was the EDG guy, then he moved over to LNG, then to JDG, and then he's moved back to LCK. I think that consistent moving just doesn't work for a player like him. Some players do very well when they move team to team. There aren't many, but some players work very well. Like Keen was very good as he moved between different rosters, right? We had that.
Okay.
A number of teams which he performed very well on. But I just think that Scout needed that stability, and he's done it to himself.
Oh, you know what? If Peter can just put fucking Yukino or whatever, I'm making Doper come in and play jungle. There you go.
I swear to God, man.
If I have to do a poll,
and LEC what was LEC versus, he actually looked legitimately like really insane in LEC versus, despite going one.
The tournament where no one looked good. Yeah, I agree. It was asked that fucking tournament, but it was garbage. Anyway. Let's go on now to my question, because actually, as always, if you notice with every question I do, just like I deconstruct someone else's question, if you don't know, by the way, that's just how you write essays. The first thing you're supposed to do in an essay is actually explain, here's basically how I read the question, how I'm going to answer it, and because you also program the person reading the essay to understand where you're coming from. So my question I put, and I'll say it, but then I'll give you the caveat. I put, listen, because I'm always very careful with how I phrase things. I said, what all-time match would you tell someone to watch to sell them on League of Legends as a great viewing experience? So you'll notice, by the way, I haven't asked, as Peter is about to now say, is it the best match? I didn't say that, Peter, because here's the problem, mate. The best match ever, or an all-time historic match, probably wouldn't actually sell very well to a fan. Like, I'll give you a random example. I always did hold for the longest time, we referenced it last episode, that the T1 versus Rocks 2016 World Semi is the best match ever. By the way, to appreciate that match, you have to know why MF being support's a big deal. If you've never watched League of Legends before, you're going to watch that match and actually think the game's garbage, mate. Like, you're even going to hear them be like, this Nidalee guy, he's never played Nidalee, and you're going to be like, oh, I guess it's an easy chat. Like, that would actually not be a great pick, believe it or not. So the reason why I picked this one is what I want to sort of see is what games do we hold in high regard that would have like an in for people. You could give you a sense of this is what's cool about League. So where did people go on this one? What are people thinking of for this one?
Should I start with an obvious one? An obvious one, I think, would be the World Finals 2022 DRX versus T1. I think that one as a viewing experience has... The thing is, I think there are caveats because of some of the illnesses which happened in that event, which sometimes put an asterisk in terms of the level of play. However, in terms of the narratives, I think in terms of the casting was excellent in that series, and just the crazy, crazy drama with all the Baron steals and the very obvious wow moments. I think that one is very easy to sell because it's a 5-game series. Yeah, and I understand that you can't immediately tap into why is it so important that it's Faker versus Deft. However, you can just tell from the casting and a lot of the show around it that I think they bring that in very, very well. Like, if you're going into football and you saw or into tennis rather, and you saw like a Nadal Federer. Now, if you know tennis, obviously you know the history of that matchup. But if you're introducing someone to that matchup, even then, because it's so talked about on the broadcast, you can see why that's so important. I think that the T1 DRX finals is a really good one to introduce anyone to the game.
So for me, for this question, I think that there's three. So I'm introducing a new player and telling them why they need to follow League of Legends. And I think
so. We're going to call them Kino Yuki. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Kino Yuki. Let's call them Kino Yuki. Yeah. So firstly, I think narratives are really important. I think the quality of the casting is really, really important, and I think creativity. Like, you either have to go one of two ways. Either you have to have really, really insane creativity in the draft, or you have to have like matchups, people playing both sides of the same matchup, right? To different, like you win with a pick, and then the other guy picks the other matchup and then loses, right? Really, really hard in the other way. So I think that those are the three things that I have. I have a list of them, but I think since you name one, I'll go with my first one, which I think is going to be 2016 LCK. I want to say LCK Summer Finals, which is the one
Rocks
where Rocks
versus
Tigers
KT?
win. Rocks versus KT. Five game series, and for everything that it meant. Because for people that don't know, Rocks were like, I think they were like literally, they didn't have any sponsorship, right?
They just had very little money.
No,
compared to anyone else.
Yeah,
They didn't have any. They basically were playing as a group of friends, and they had like a name sponsor, which is why they were the GE, then the Huya, then the Rocks Tigers. That they had a name sponsor, but that was it.
But I mean, for me, that's the last time that I can think of that, like, a group, because of how franchising works, that's the last time I can think of that a group of people that actually seem like a group of friends actually won. And you can correct me if there's another time, but I think that was the last watershed, and that after that roster disbanded, I don't think that there was ever that ever happened again. So it was kind of the end of like an era. But yeah, for everything that finals meant, the fact that it went 5 games, some of the so but basically for the narrative and for what it meant, I think that's what I would go with.
Okay,
that's a fair call out. Have you got one, Thorin?
Yeah. Right, I'm trying to double check. I'm just trying to check some threads here to see which one it is. But essentially, I just don't know which match it was because these two teams played twice in this tournament. So I'll guess which one it is, but you can figure it out. There's only 2. It's actually, if you go back to 2023 MSI, there was a match between JDG and BLG, the 2 best teams from China. I think it's the upper bracket one. It's the one where basically it might be the 2 best like team fighting performances in the same game you've ever seen. Like, it's the one where there's that sequence where Knight's on Syndra and he does like the perfect scat of the week as like around the Baron, if you remember this fight that took place. And also, if you remember, I personally think JDG is the best team ever. That was the tournament where they were just perfectly peeling for roulette in every single fight. Like Knight's both carrying as a middle, but also doing like perfect, like, you know, fucking peel people off, zone them off. And this match, I think it was the upper bracket one. This is the one where, if everyone remembers, you can watch some of these fights and you can do like a Jat team fight breakdown. And BLG didn't even do anything wrong in some of these fights. It was just actually both teams playing like unbelievable team fights. So first of all, I think it'd be a great way to just explain the concept of how team fighting works, like how they're trying to create space for this guy here to get off this ability. He's got the reset, whatever. And then also, I actually think it's just a really exciting game. It's just fucking dope to watch.
Yeah, no, funnily enough, I was actually going to choose T1 JDG from MSI 23 as one of my shortlists.
Also a very good match, the upper bracket one.
And also, I saw that live as well. Yeah. And like, I think there's a separate phase to this question as well, because this wasn't stated in the question, whether it's online or whether it's in person. And I think that actually, there is actually a noted difference for, you know, where does the event take place? How are the fan bases as well? Because some fan bases are really, really cool to see in person. And having like T1 versus the Chinese fan bases as well, like the Korean and the Chinese fan bases, both being up in arms and like crazy about, because it's such a close series between 2 of the greatest players of all time, and Knight and Faker and you know, JDG and the super team. Fucking insane game. It was absolutely insane. That's one of my favorite series of all time. Yeah, and I think the gameplay was just really good. I think the meta was really good. Talking about the crazy explosive Annie plays, you had Jace, crazy individual matchups. You had some of I think 2023 maybe was the peak of team fighting we've ever seen.
It was also when you could have those amazing mid-knee cores that can get... By the way, isn't that one of the easiest ults for a fan to understand if you explain it to him? It's going to be really fun to tell him, let's see if he can get it on the angle. Look, I think that would even be really compelling for a newer fan to watch if you told him how it worked.
Yeah, that's fair. Peter, you got any...
And you had the Zeri, you had everything, mate. That was actually a dope team fighting meta, wasn't it? It was just really awesome.
He was in there as well, yeah.
No, I mean, just to agree with you. These aren't... So, yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to add from that. Mine were different. Mine were different events because I went really hard. I went really hard on narrative rather than on.
Can we please, perchance, know one of these picks, sir?
Okay, so I'm gonna go 2020 Summer LPL Finals.
2020.
Yes,
okay.
Summer.
This is the TikTok esports versus who?
JDG, right?
Oh, it was the one where they met both times. Yes, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the first time Knight wins the LPL, yeah?
Yes.
Knight versus Yago.
Yes. And I mean, the significance of that, the fact that like he kind of doesn't look back after this, and it's like the start of, you know, obviously people, I'm sure that we're going to talk about the start of somebody else's legacy later in the series, but you know, the fact that this is like the start of a great player's legacy, I think is really, really important, right? And but again, 5-game series. Again, yeah. I mean, there's not a lot to there's not a lot to say about this. I mean, I think it's just for the significance of what it meant. I think it's a good one to get people.
I have an outside pick for you because this was actually the first event which I really started watching myself, and it was a really good introduction to me. So this is what kind of I started watching a little bit before this, but this was really the event which I really got invested in LoL esports was All-Star 2014. So this was the precursor to MSI. And there's some specific games which were really, really cool. Particularly, I thought T1 versus Fnatic, where T1 played an out-of-meta composition where they played all of their world's winning skins from 2013. And it was completely out of meta. Zed was bad at that point because Exhaust meta had come through. Like Zyra, Vayne had really fallen off in terms of bot lane. And T1 have like a SKT rather at that point had like a comeback play with like Faker stealing Baron and getting a triple kill on Zed. And this is like in the height of Faker's kind of era as well. And it was in front of this crazy loud, large audience in Paris as well. That was fucking spectacular. But that actually wasn't the first game I thought about at that event, because I thought about the 2 games that they played against OMG. Now, the way I remember it was, and I might be mistaken on this, effectively, the first time that SKT played OMG, they gave OMG all of their comfort picks and said, go on then, beat us.
Most famously, they gave the mid laner, who was like a LeBlanc or a Syndra lane, I forget which one. They just gave him his pick on purpose, almost like the limit test, right?
Yes, so they gave him the Syndra and said, go on, see what you can do. And it was a pretty close game, but SKT beat them. Then the next time they faced them, Faker took the Syndra instead and just shitstomped them. So they gave them the most powerful picks and said, go on, win. And then they beat them with their own comfort picks after that too. There was like a level of storytelling and bravado around that as well. So even though that was 12 years ago, I actually think All-Star 2014, it's not the most rigorous format. It is like a single round robin with a load of best of ones in it and whatever. That was such a cool event for me to watch getting into League at the start of it.
Problem with that is if you gave all that context, it'd be good. But I'll tell you already why I didn't pick any games from this era. Because the person's going to be like, is this on a Nintendo 64? Like, think of what the game would even look like back then, bro. It's going to look bad scuffed, in it. It's going to look insane.
You're
it's like Minecraft or something, you know. But think about what the Baron used to look like. Right. Think about how bad the Rift was, homie. He was fucking bad, mate.
I like the bright colours of it. You know, just the dead drab waste. You're definitely not wrong though. Like old Rift, it's nostalgic for me. It's not great.
I think a lot of people, I know people don't watch old VODs. You've all just retconned the current one and think it was always that. It looked a lot more scuffed, boys. Like, it looked a lot more scuffed, I'm telling you.
Oh man! Oh, that's such a good reason not to do.
That's why I skipped a lot of the early ones, you know.
But like, if you are going to pick an early one, I think All-Star 2014, in terms of the casting, the bravado, actually a lot of the Ice and Fire stuff at that point too. Like seeing all of these players play together, like it was a great introduction into some of the world's and history's best. That was the way that I would describe that event, because we saw like, you know, Frog and Ants, ex-Peke and Diamond Prox and all of these. Well, Peke wasn't on the same team there, because if you competed in the main event, you can really compete in the secondary round. I think that was the way that it worked. But yeah, there was some really, really fucking cool crossovers there, which you just don't see anymore. Particularly because All-Star after that became a bit of a sham event and no one really wanted to go to it. This one they took seriously and it looked so cool.
Man, okay, so this takes away from the graphics, but I think I'm still going to go for it, even though. But this isn't the first one I would show them. This is like the third one I show them. Get them hooked, you know, with the LPL finals, and then I'm going to go back to NLB finals. 2012.
This is such an absurd pick, I know, innit?
No, but you know which one I'm going to talk about if I'm talking about NLB. There's only one that I can possibly be talking about, which is CJ Entus versus GSG, right? Which is the Blitzcrank.
Heimerdinger or some shit like that, innit?
Was this the Heimerdinger jungle one?
The Heimerdinger jungle, Blitzcrank mid. Right? A game where they literally group up as 5 for the entire game against and just run around taking all the time.
It was Papa Smithy casting that too.
And pastry time, right?
Yeah, I think it was Papa and Pastry doing the cast for that, yeah.
They are literally so this is one of the things. If you guys don't know what it is, I'm gonna literally put the link inside the comments. I'll see if we can get it pinned in a comment or something. Where literally they are just laughing non-stop at the absurdity of what they're seeing. It's like people. So GSG context. They're playing against CJ Entus. CJ Entus at this time have some like literal legends of the game, right? I think they have Insect playing for them. They have Dade playing for them. They have Long Panda and Space, who I guess had careers. I don't know if I call them legends of the game, right? But they had careers.
Well, they are infamous, but yeah.
They are Space Prison, etc. But this is a CJ enters one of the most. An org which is funded, whereas GSG, literally, group of friends, these guys don't have careers if they lose this final. Okay? It goes to the final game of the set, and they pull out the most absurd strategy you've ever seen that is nerfed into the ground, like within a year, I think within months of this ever being played. So you can never ever play something like this again. I think it's literally, so I just opened the screenshot, the link which I had, and all of this strategy, you have to win early game. They win in like 90 minutes, and there are no completed. There's one player has a completed item. They're literally, some people have like 4 Doran's items, or 3 or 4 Doran's items, and they go Blitzcrank mid, they go Heimerdinger jungle. It's one of the most insane games that I've ever seen. For these guys, it meant a huge amount because, again, group of friends, they don't make it. And I think Pumandu is on that roster, and he never has the career that he has if they go and lose this.
I think even at that point, he'd be called Mandu because he only called himself Pumandu for 20 when he joined up with Piglet.
Oh, because it was Piglet. It was Piglet. Yeah. It was Mandu. There's Easy Hoon on this roster, right? So Easy Hoon and Mandu who have their careers playing against literally legend like Insect and Dade. I cannot stress enough how legendary they are, getting absolutely demolished by this insane strategy, and it looks incredibly scuffed. But it's definitely, if you haven't seen this series, I just go and watch it, right? And I'll put the link in the chat because it meant so much.
On that note as well, I'll throw out one last little thing for the old heads in there. Pretty much any OGN cast from like 2013 to 2015, like fucking great. You can so that's actually just gameplay aside. If you want to listen to like the peak of League of Legends casting in my mind, just go back to the peak Monty Doe era. Like I got into casting because of that. I hold that very special in my heart. Even if the gameplay was crap, one of the things which really drew people to League was just the level of broadcast from like, I think particularly for me, career 2013 to 2016 odd. The Monty Doe and then into like the Papa era was really, really fucking special. So like, despite the game not being easy to watch, the casting was so good you didn't mind, much in the same way that Tastosis did, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, if you notice, actually, this is one area, I think, unfortunately, that sometimes the LPL and LCK being so stacked actually makes it not that great. Is a lot of the finals aren't that great, unfortunately. A lot of the finals are either stomps or it's people who are like nervous. It's why, if you notice, I picked even the BLG that got smashed in the series. I said they played really well, though. I like series where it's like both teams play awesome and you just have to tip your hat to the winner. So that's what I tried to go more with. You could also obviously do, if you want to pick like a Western one, you could do like one of those G2 versus T1s from 2019. They're both fucking mega series. They both have their own context. They're really good, and there's still some good champions with agency back then.
But I mean, I think the problem is that in terms of Western League of Legends, I think that our great fan experience games are kind of behind us, right? Because you look at, so this year with KC and G2, you could, like, these games could have gone down as like legendary finals, but they're being played in a studio. Like the 2026 LEC Spring Finals was pretty hype.
Yes.
Like if you just purely look at the gameplay, and then they flick around and they look at the crowd, and there's like 300 people there. Right?
Also, I don't think even though fans have always thought this is hating, right? There's a classic like thing that used to be thrown at Monty, which I think is one of the worst fucking angles of all time, because it gives away that the fan himself doesn't know what he's talking about. They would always go, bloody Monty, he's just in love with Koreans. Like if in the LCS they fucked up a Baron setup, he'd go, that's terrible. But then in LCK he'd be like, wow, they stole the Baron. And it's like, yeah, but what you've missed there is the entire eye test that obviously wouldn't check out, would it? Like, because what you're arguing for there is basically it's the same play, but because the guy's Korean, Monty pretends he's better. Like, you'd have to beg a belief to make anyone even buy into that concept. But with that said, it is also true. Like, if you want to go for classic matches in the West, you've got to go back to some like TSM versus C9 with Jensen and Bjergsen.
The MSG
or
one
some
in
legendary EU one from 2010. The problem is, if you do go in the 2020s, even though there have been a lot of close like LEC finals, a lot of the time the level of play is a bit dodgy. Like, there's a game or two where people are just shit or something fucks up. Unfortunately, I do think the West in that sense doesn't really match up as well. It's hard to pick a really amazing series to watch.
The other thing that I would say for this for this question is if we're talking about introducing somebody new to the game.
Oh, technically, if you really look, I'll tell you one angle. You can just tell them to watch that G2 Super Team versus Origins for the fastest match ever. Because you can just tell them this is what's possible. If you actually do completely destroy someone's soul, like this is about how fast you can ever win a game. There you go. Like, and the other team they're playing aren't even shit. They're good players, mate, but they just can't do anything. Yeah.
But
the draft will make no sense though, by the way. They're just fucking fixing everything all over the players. It'll be terrible.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think also like getting them to watch a cast in a different language. I think so. So we talked about peak OGN casting.
Why? He can never just answer the question, can he? This yeah, but what if I make them watch a cast in a different language, Thorin? Well, I mean, you could. I don't know why you do this as someone who's never watched League before.
Because I think that kind of exposes how wide spread a game is. And I'll be honest, I don't watch any Korean casts, right?
Okay.
But you watch like
it's not really much of an admission, is it? You're not Korean, so why would you?
Well, yeah. Okay, but you watch like a peak Ibai cast, right? Okay. So like I've got I'll put a link. Right. I'll put a link in that from like.
You're going to watch a Peekaboo cast and go ja in the chat. That's what you're doing right now.
I mean, I'll put a link in. Like there was one between like OG BCN versus Spliced Vipers, which was I got to hear in Spanish because I was there in the venue, and like that was for me is one of the hypest casts that I've.
I mean, there are some great like Japanese casts from when I was listening back to LJL, right? I mean, the game where. DFM qualified to the World Group stage for the first and only time of any Japanese team when it was DFM Cloud9. Obviously, for me, that meant an awful lot, but the casting added a lot to that. I mean, there are plenty of series which I would only recommend them because of the casting, not because it was special in any other way. And I think that there was in fact, weirdly, there was a French cast of Shogun, the Vietnamese AD carry, getting a pentakill, which popped the fuck off. That was really, really cool. I remember the clip making it to Reddit. And like, there are certain clips in other languages where I'm like, okay, yeah, I can actually, even if I don't understand the language, damn, this actually looks like a really fun time.
But it means a lot. The problem is that it means a lot to the people that are casting this, right? I give the example, right? Like EDG versus INTZ, right? Like I wouldn't, if you do the English cast is serviceable, right? But you listen to the Brazilian cast of INTZ versus EDG, and literally people almost on the verge of tears, it matters a lot. And I guess for me, one of the reasons why I really love listening to Spanish casts and Portuguese casts, even if I don't understand everything that's going on, is that the passion and the hostility that you get in those casts are not really what you get in an English language cast, because I feel like it's been sanitized a bit. That's kind of what
my alternative, my backup pick was I would obviously have told people to watch the 2025 EMEA Masters Summer semi-final of KCB versus Los Ratones for the Yukino performance there in the 3-0, because they'll need to understand this player to be able to watch everything else Peter recommends. So he's somewhat the Rosetta Stone to understanding Great League. Like,
I will say that the super versus Kalist.
It's he's actually taking it seriously. Like, I'm obviously fucking trolling, but whatever.
There was when Kalist.
There's some 3-2 epic series for sure, yeah.
Yeah. But again, really good in French, right? You maybe because it means.
Hey, if you go back to some of the EMEA Masters cast in like 22 and 23, you might hear my voice on there.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, Nymaera cast for the educational content, right?
Hey, no, don't dude. There are games and series where like I enjoyed it while I was on them. Right, there was the Heretics win for EMEA Masters, whereas like I got to cast it with my brother and Troublelink. That was by the way, that was a goated like ERL's cast, like that, me and my brother, and then Georgia as well. We really enjoyed those. Fucking love those. There was like a 5-game series for Heretics versus, was it BDS Academy? I think it was. That was the first time Spain won that in ERLs. Oh, trip down memory lane that is for me.
Right, let's do the last question then. So the last question is Peter's. So what is it, Peter?
So my question is, pick, in your opinion, your top 3 favorite rivals between individuals in LoL history, right? So not between orgs, right? Purely between individual players, in terms of like the narrative of what those things meant. Right, and it doesn't have to be an even rivalry. It can just be somebody beating up on somebody else, right? But purely between individuals rather than between orgs, right? And I guess I'll start from this, right? Which is I will go Jensen versus Bjergsen.
That's a good pick. It's a very good pick.
purely because it's not a one-sided thing. I think it's also a lot of those finals went to 5 games. It's within the context of C9 versus TSM, like what it meant at a time where League of Legends was on the rise, between arguably probably the 2 most popular orgs in the West. Well, Fnatic would have had an argument in those days, right? But
in CLG,
and it was also bigger though.
CLG.
I think you could just say Cloud9.
Yeah, two of the top 4, 2 of the top 4 or 5 orgs in the West, right? And the fact that almost every one of those went the distance, I mean that would be my number 1 choice.
That's a fair, because they ended up playing so many big ticket matchups, which really, really helped it, right? Because any story, when you just play it enough on a big enough stage, gains weight to it. So I suppose the classic one, which I mentioned from LPL, would be Knight versus Yagao, because that has that was such a rivalry that we did to death that we actually had to like back off on it because it happened too much. Because you have that sometimes with player or team matches, like obviously Fnatic versus G2 in the West. You hear too much after a certain while, but you play too much. But the fact that Knight and Yagao were not only people from the same hometown, I think it's Pingxiang was the place where they grew up in. Not only did they grow up in the same hometown, they went to the same PC cafe and played on the same PC cafe team. And Yagao was the better mid laner, so forced Knight to play off role. And then later on, when you get into these finals, Knight is the best player in the LPL, and Yagao is the one like silver bullet to him who could bring him down on the biggest stages. There was that one finals in 2020 spring, right? I think that was when Yagao like really got a big victory over Knight in one of his like peak eras, right? And obviously, as it went on, Knight would then eventually reclaim that matchup. Eventually, particularly in 2023 when it was like BLG versus JDG, and JDG won 10 times back to back. Yagao would still turn up and play his very best game against Knight specifically. And for me, just watching these two players who knew each other very, very closely, right, from childhood onwards, seeing them compete on the biggest stages for titles in one of the best regions of the world, there was something very special about that. So having two people fight from their own hometown, that's never something that can go wrong, right?
Okay. Right, I have picked for mine, well, even though this one doesn't work from a role, because it's not the same roles, I actually just think if you're someone who, if this shocks you at all, you're a new viewer, because actually the history of League of Legends at one point in time could be argued to be Deft versus Faker, because not only did they have the amazing bookend, they met at the beginning of their careers and at the end with the Deft on the fucking DRX one, but also they have just totally different careers. Like what Deft goes around the houses to all different teams and squad. Faker stays in one place the whole time. Also, if you don't know, they both won everything. They both won literally everything. So, they played different roles. I also think, by the way, two of the best players ever for longevity. I actually think Deft's longevity is mad underrated. People forget. Basically, until the very end, he was still like individually a stud. The guy was actually just a monster. So, if he hadn't won the Worlds at the end, maybe people would have downplayed this one. But actually, that was one. And also, they met a billion times, I'm telling you. Like, remember, they met when they were in Korea. Then EDG used to play T1 every fucking time. That used to be the original TS versus T1.
MSI 2015 finals.
You know that the underdog loses every time. And then when he came back, he was on the KT Super team. There was that one too. And at the end, he has the DRX run. So I actually think this is like an underrated one in league history, because it's just because they didn't play the same role. Obviously, people at the time would have tried to make it Deft as Zuzi Eye or something. But if you just look at these two players, these were the two players who have like everything, longevity, peak. They've got to their position. They've done different careers. I just think it's a really dope narrative. I actually think it wasn't played up enough, unfortunately.
And they were from the same high school, right, too? I think they again, there's another two which
Mapu
from the same
or
high
whatever
school.
the fuck, yeah.
Yeah, but they played an MSI 2015 finals. They played various times since that.
A bunch of times in Worlds knockouts as well. Bunch of times. Maybe the most. Yeah. They might actually be the players who played the most.
And on a previous episode of this show, I'm pretty sure that was it one or two of us that picked Deft as our second greatest player ever as well. So this is like two players that know each other from childhood, have played each other the length of their careers, and two of the longest careers ever, whilst also simultaneously being perhaps the two greatest players to play League.
Because I always used to tell people that's why that take, which was only even vaguely valid, like in the early days of League, of like the second greatest player is Uzi I. It's like, bruh, Deft's. If you haven't seen his Deft, like what were you watching the last 10 years? Like that that take survived a long time too, boys. You had to get the Chovies of the world, etc., to come along now for it to get erased. So that used to be, along with Bengi as the second best player of all time, that was the other worst bad take of all time there. We should even have that. What were the worst bad fan takes that were popular and real? Because one thing, the reason why that would be an interesting future topic is that everyone does that dirty thing. This is actually why you guys will appreciate this. One of the reasons that's good and bad about doing shows is you're documented saying the things you think and believe. I'll tell you one quick thing that anyone who's ever done a show will understand, right? Which is if you actually say a player is top 5, a player is top 10, then you actually have to do the top 10. When a fan doesn't do it, what you do is you're always a genius because your top 10 has 20 players in it. Mine has to have 10, so I'm always an idiot because I leave the 11th person off. But as long as you don't have to quantify your 10, you can go, he is top 5. Because I notice people use those groupings not to mean I've got 5 players and he's in the top 5. They just mean like his rough level should be top 5, you know. So I think actually one thing, a lot of those takes have been deleted now. People pretend they never had them, but there was some bad takes for a long time. So I'm picking that one. I think that's a banger one. I think, right, and also it's one of those rivalries where, like I said, defined the history of League of Legends. You can even say, by the way, it even like shows like the development of the LPL, etc., because actually the years Deft was there was when you weren't supposed to be able to win. Actually, that was when they were still on the come up. In fact, if people don't know, Deft joining was basically like a show of force by the LPL. They even replaced the guy Nymaera, who was arguably the second best player with him. Like that was one of those upgrades where it's like you can't do shit about it, but you have to go for it in it. So what are some other ones, boys? Where else are we going?
Okay.
Here?
One huge moment was the General's Jacket 2014 Worlds. We've mentioned this before, but Pawn and Dade, that specific rivalry, because they're two players which changed rosters between Samsung Blue, or at that point Samsung Ozone as well. They changed rosters and both teams became the 2 best teams in the world. And then fought on the world stage was fucking incredible. The only
also, I've got an angle for you. A lot of people haven't heard about that because this is one of those things that was known behind the scenes but never revealed publicly. They didn't actually do that swap because obviously originally Pawn was on blue, wasn't he? That's how he came up against Faker. A lot of people don't know this. They didn't do that swap for what it looked like, which is, oh, well, Dade is like better to be the captain of like, you know, the younger team of players, and Pawn, well, you've already got Matt and you got no. I've heard internally in the team, the original team that had Dade with Dandy and Matter, they just couldn't get along, mate. And I've heard they just had some like fight, maybe even it's implied like an actual fist fight, and then that's why they made this swap. But the joke is, in doing so, they made Samsung White, which a lot of people think is the greatest team ever. So it's one of those like happenstance ones where some outside of the server bullshit actually made a better roster.
Yeah, and then particularly for Dade, who, I mean, you awarded him the very initial Dade Award for 2013 Worlds, where he was meant to be on Samsung Ozone, perhaps the best player in the world at points, or you know, one of the best, world beating, and he fell apart. They didn't even get out of the group stage. Then redeemed himself with Samsung Blue after changing over there and made a run which many consider them to be the best team of 2014, even though they didn't win Worlds of that year. To lose against Samsung White and him kind of like passing on the very physical mantle of, I am the captain of this team, I always wear my Samsung jacket, and passing this over to Pawn, who replaced me on the other side of it, that even though the quote-unquote rivalry was so short, it was only 2 years really between the two of them, that will forever be one of the greatest stories in the league. And because it was crowned with this whole losing to the person that replaced you, but then passing on kind of like this mantle of generalship to the other player. Fucking incredible. So I have to put that on the shortlist.
Okay, I've got one that's so I'll do the one which probably has the least room for discussion, right? Because we talked about the history of League of Legends. So I'm going to talk about one which maybe people don't really know that much outside of China, but I think was probably the most consequential for how Chinese League of Legends formed itself, which is the rivalry between Illusion and Whites. And if people don't know who these guys are, basically in Season 1, Invictus Gaming exists. One of the biggest orgs, Invictus Gaming World Elite. They had a mid laner called Whites, and his team, he had Tabez AD Carry, who people will know as the one of the best coaches in the world. They had a guy called Chris's as support, and basically they brought in this, but this was a team which managed to win qualifiers in China, but never really managed to do well when they went internationally, right? They had some really embarrassing losses internationally, and they brought in a player called Illusion, to go and fill in to who's this really up and coming Chinese jungler. It was a complete shit show. Things went really, really badly, and the roster split. Whites then spent 1.5 years in the wilderness trying to make his way back up, and eventually was able. So this was Season 1, okay, when this initial beef started. Season 3, he and Tabe join an org called Royal Club. And they're able to make it to China through the regional gauntlet, knocking out Invictus Gaming on the way, going to Worlds, getting that final at Worlds, and then obviously leading up into everything that Royal Club became afterwards to compete. So China kind of went from a region which was like World Elite versus Invictus Gaming to World Elite, Invictus Gaming, Royal Club, and EDG, who kind of split from World Elite. It's a complicated story, but that never happens if these two don't have like an insane dislike of each other and basically don't get on, right? Because Royal never be able to find the success that they are without those guys happening, right? So that's just a side consequential one early on for the foundation of LPL.
Okay, I've got one that is actually a mixture of it worked in both levels. This actually shows like how we actually didn't do a very good job, sadly, doing media around this because there's no video you can go and watch for this. It's going to be Reckless versus Forgiven. Because, like, first of all, the reason it's mega is it works in the game. They had the two contrasting styles of ADC. If people don't know, Reckless plays the traditional style, which is you get through the laning phase. You don't necessarily go super hard unless you have the right matchup or your support can zone, etc. And then you get to the team fight. People peel for you. Old school 5v5 front to back team fight. You fight all the way back. You kite. You do all the damage. You win the game if you are the better carrying the resources and you and your team peels for you. Forgiven's whole style of play, by the way, notice also what's perfect is because they came up on different teams. Reckless came up on the best team with all the best solos and all the macro. Forgiven came up on the scoffed Copenhagen Wolves where he had bad players in his solos. So Forgiven's style was like Uzi eye shit. It's like the lane phase is where I win the game, bro. Like I'm going to be so far ahead coming out of lane that I can just do anything in the team fight at that point. So then you've got the personality aspect. At the time, this is obviously a bit changed now. Actually, Reckless was considered the super chill, must be a good teammate. There's no way he's ever complaining guy. Just shuts up and does his job. Forgiven was the really loud mouth. He'll tell his own teammates their shit. You can clearly see he didn't respect some people he played with. He just tries to like brute force the game as the star player, even though it's a team game. And then also, even though this one was slightly briefly lived because it was only a few years it lasted, like at the time, EU didn't have that many rivalries. They were either like in the game it's a rivalry or it's out of the game it's a rivalry. This is what, like, by the way, shit like Upset Attila was never a rivalry. Like, I'm sorry, that's one player just thinking he's as good as the other one that he isn't. So like, this was actually a banger. This one, and it was a great one that actually divided all the fan base. You had people, you were on one side or the other of this matchup, and obviously then, thanks to Forgiven, had a bit of animosity, even though shout out to Freeze for provoking that famous Twitter beef where they all went at each other. So there was just a bang of the whole thing. And I can tell you, even though years later they did shit like take turns to an event where they wore each other's jersey and did a handshake, it was, I can tell you behind the scenes it was fake as fuck. They just knew that, they knew every now and then you need a pressure release valve to make fans think it's just WWE. It wasn't WWE. They really did both like despise each other and think that they're better than the other guy. And it was just a fucking dope rivalry. It really was. It was mega.
Ooh, right. What else we got in there? I'll do like one more, and then I think we've got like a fair amount through this, unless we've got some real inspiration for that. I actually think I might go for another old Korean one. Imp versus Piglet was pretty fucking spicy. That was pretty good. For those of you that weren't around like in the 2013, 2014 era, Piglet won Worlds in 2013, considered best AD carry in the world, potentially obviously beat Uzi in the finals. And then in 2014, like he fell off pretty hard in the winter season, and Imp really started to rise up as well, to the point where in the trash talk segments between Samsung Y and SKT, we have this famous line which has lived through to modern league community, which is, you saw Piglet cry, right? Because obviously they beat them, and Piglet I think that was even in a win, even with Piglet. He was so disappointed in his own performance that he cried because effectively he was carried after being, the best AD carry in the world, or assumed to be so at that point. And Imp really overtook him in 2014. And the back and forth between the two of them was actually really big again in like 2014. But realistically, what I'm realizing with like the Pawn Dade and the Imp Piglet thing is that I really like matchups where they are framed correctly by broadcast and the players buy into it enough as well. It helps when there's a bit of reality behind it, when actually the players maybe do have some animosity, maybe they do have some reasons where they're like competitive or otherwise, where they perhaps have something against each other. But Imp Piglet stuck out to my mind because of the really good trash talk. Not many rivalries have kind of reached that, at least in the community sense. That's lasted for a long time, some of the lines in that matchup.
I even think that was actually what basically taught the Koreans, the trash talk segment, because it was during one of the Express or Gem ones. You're allowed to be like a little bit naughty in a way you would never do publicly otherwise, because if essentially a lot of people took that style after that, of sort of like, you're going to be the one that's upset after the finals, which is a pretty good angle, by the way. It's a really mean thing to say, but that is what you're supposed to say to a guy in a trash talk segment.
Yeah, but I mean, was it always him beating down on Piglet? Like, I don't know if it's my hindsight.
In
I just remember Imp was
2014.
god tier. Imp was god tier, like god tier trash talk in those segments. Like, I don't think there's been another player that has been that.
Also,
good.
by the way, that was actually spicier than people realise, because sadly, at the time, whereas Imp was the person who always did trash talk and had a very outgoing personality, at the time, people actually didn't know what Piglet was like. It wasn't until he went to Team Liquid and Dom and all that shit that all those stories came out. At the time, believe it or not, some people thought this was just mean. They were like, you're just being a dick to him, he just cried. It's like, no, if you actually know what Piglet was like, Piglet was mega spicy himself, so I'm pretty sure behind the scenes, they both just despised each other, and it was all that shit of like, I'm the best Korean ADC, which is kind of cool. I actually like rivalries that are based on like, we're both, it can't, like I say, it can't just be like we just hate each other as people. Like they tried to do this a couple of years ago, wasn't it? Like last year in whatever, I think it was like spring or something, when fucking, maybe it was winter, the one when Fnatic beat Koi and then Super like wouldn't shake Upset's hand. Like that's some Attila shit again, mate. Like Super, mate, I'm sorry, that isn't a real rivalry. Like you have to actually both be great players. That's when the best rivalry is the anime one, where you're both amazing players. Hopefully, like I say, with different styles of play too. That's just a cool one. And then on top of it, you just don't fuck with each other and you think the other guy's overrated. So that's the best rivalry. That's the one you want in the game.
Yeah. I mean, basically, the animosity really has to come either because you people.
By the way, it's why your pick's a good one too, because I can tell you also behind the scenes. Oh, don't worry, Bjergsen and Doublelift, Bjergsen and Jensen did both think they were better than the other one, and even that one even had its own cool narrative. If people don't know, on the come up, Jensen actually had to just be like, I'm like the hard carry mid lane, I win the lane, and that's why I'm the best. And then Bjergsen's whole shit was obviously like on some faker, like I just find the angles and the clutch fucking angle, I do the weird pick. So I even thought they also had like a really cool dynamic in that sense too. And there was times where I actually thought, I mean, obviously, eventually Jensen did get to win in Team Liquid as well, didn't he? But there was times I even thought he was the better individual player. Just the other guy's got the better team, and which is classic rivalry sort of fuel in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because it means that in Europe, we don't really have...
We didn't have very good ones. I tried thinking a lot of the EU ones, mate. They're not that good. Like, I'll give you an example. People are going to think immediately of, what about Perks' Caps? He was a baby at the time, mate. We never got that one properly, unfortunately, because they played together during the peaks. So,
yeah,
like,
I did think
there's
about
not that many European ones. There really isn't. Like,
well, you can maybe say inspired El Yoya for the 2 years it was in, because they were like really fucking good. But again, they split regions. They did have some really good series against each other, but I don't think that lasted quite long enough. I think Inspire LUI was really close, but didn't quite reach there.
Yeah, I mean, even when it was like Peke, Froggen, and Alex Ich, those guys didn't really like hate each other, right?
No, there wasn't very much animosity. That was just respect. It wasn't like
animosity. Yeah, so for mine, I just go peak animosity, which is Afromoon versus Doublelift, who these guys were like together.
That's fair, yeah.
For a long time, right? And then there was the situation with the Link Manifesto, which came out basically saying that Doublelift is like
the Dunzo Manifesto, yeah.
The Dunzo Manifesto. And then, here CLG Doublelift was CLG's guy for like forever,
of
right?
Course.
This Dunzo Manifesto came out. The best thing that CLG could have done is just kept with Doublelift forever, but they kicked him, and then they won the LCS title
right after, against
6A,
him.
Who was like blatantly worse than Doublelift.
No, by the way, the reason it's perfect, Peter, is that's why it was Afromoo, not Stixay versus Doublelift. Because essentially what Afromoo did was just go, I can take a rookie and just tell him play Caitlyn, I can beat you, which is kind of like some gangsta anime shit in it, yeah.
Yeah, and it was also the change of the guard because Doublelift was CLG, and it was just like CLG being like, fuck off, right?
Yeah.
Like, and obviously Doublelift like won his titles afterwards.
Yeah.
But this was a time before he win a I think
he won one with CLG.
He won one with him, didn't he?
2015 summer, right?
Yeah. And then those guys made MSI finals that year, CLG,
without him,
and then never again.
Yeah.
Do you have a third one, Thorin, or?
The problem is actually, this is something I thought about a lot. There actually are so many matchups that don't fit both sides. Like either in the server they're good, but there's no beef. Like actually, there's very few LPL ones. That's what's funny. But people don't realize this. Like, in fact, LPL had its own problem where I also think LPL is more like the Def versus Faker one. Like, I'll give you an example. When you would have like IG versus RNG, which happened a million times, it wasn't really Rookie versus Xiao. It was more like Rookie versus Uzi I or something like that. You know what I mean? Because it was like, who's going to win the LPL finally? That's what people were thinking. There's actually not that many crazy beefs. And that's why Nymaera points out that it's just the fucking one where they would grow up together.
There are some between orgs where like WE hated Clearlove because he kind of spurned them for EDG.
Yeah.
Then like Scout had some like bad blood with EDG for leaving them for LNG, then with LNG going to JDG, so he got some bad blood there. We did have Bin versus 369 for a while. Bin versus 369, that was a really, really good matchup within 2023. Yeah. But then the problem was like they kind of peaked at different times. 23 was like the golden year for that was fucking fantastic. But again, that felt like it was a little overshadowed by Knight versus Yagao. Probably. I know there are some players which genuinely don't like each other because of some shit set off of things. There's plenty of beef, but I'm not really sure that ever really materialized onto the rifts. Like there were some people talking shit about each other's wives and stuff like that, which didn't go down as well. But I don't have the receipts for that to like say it on show effectively. There are definitely players who do not like each other, but it doesn't always materialize into a broadcast narrative.
Half the time though that they don't like each other, it's like they're on the same team. Like we're like Swift and Doinby hate each other or some shit. Even though they're
that's shit
like it's bullshit like that, isn't it? Like the Jug's not even rival teams; you're on the same bloody team.
Yeah, I'm so sad that didn't develop as much because like those are two of the people that I really think despised each other's guts, like Swift and Doinby.
Well, there you go. You know what? It technically doesn't like an EU rivalry have to be like Adam versus everyone or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this guy's beefed with everyone. In fact, you can even say Adam versus Crowley, mate. They literally had to kick one of them out of the team.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous because they almost won the LEC together. It's nuts, in it. I know. Right. What a world.
Yeah, I'm sure we're missing some classic ones, but like those, I think that's a good guideline. You know, let us know in the comments if we missed one because I feel that it's a good baseline, but I think we've only just.
Well, technically, I guess we did technically miss Chovy versus Faker, like.
That's You
know, but it just feels too obvious. And also, don't you think actually doesn't this fit my criteria though? Doesn't the thing that sucks about Chovy versus Faker? It's actually the Chovy side because you know what? If you ever go and look, especially at Worlds, Faker will put a mild, very very mild mustardy, spicy comment about Chovy. He'll sort of say like he hasn't won it yet or he has to come through me. But even then, by the way, Faker doesn't disrespect because I can tell Faker actually reveres greatness. The real problem is the Chovy side's too polite, isn't he? He's not. Unfortunately, he's not the sort of player. Sadly, you'd want him to have the forgiving personality, but he doesn't. He is the guy sort of like, oh, sorry, I didn't win Worlds yet, guys. I'll try harder next time. Like, that's not fucking great trash talk, though, is it, mate? What you're supposed to do, which I get you can't do in Korea, is like, of course I didn't win Worlds. I used to play with Thorin or some shit like that. You know, you need to do some shit like that, don't you? And even then, Faker can just be like, yeah, what's the problem? Which is also gangster, whatever. I'll write the lines. I'll make a fake narrative. There you go. If I get to write the lines, there you go. That's the narrative.
Well, that's what a lot of people don't know, particularly at Worlds, but even in OGN as well, because you're talking about how Imp kind of taught them how to trash talk. Most of the time, the players are given their trash talk lines, or at least they are led into it to say, well, what about this, or something like that, and they can riff off it. It's more of a collaborative thing. Because,
but it is weird. I can tell you, if you know how those segments work, I can tell that the producer tells some of them, yeah, but didn't you guys used to play together in a challenge? They tell them some shit like that to sort of spur the angle, and then they just, the point is, they just cut to the soundbite, don't they?
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure. So I have good information that Faker's "All Roads Lead to Me." That was one that was scripted for him, and it's a great line. It works very well. That's not a knock against him, of course, right there too. But like the best things which come on broadcast from teasers and stuff like that are often collaborative. So it's often like, you know, why don't we try something like this? And you'll work with the player to make it to that. But yeah, not every player. Some of the ones which have been around longer have actually.
In fact, isn't that the problem? Isn't the problem that's not even Faker versus Chovy? It's just Faker versus the LPL, isn't it? Isn't it like country in China versus Faker, sort of low key?
Yeah, Faker versus my job as he killed it in 2024 finals. You know.
Got it there.
I have a topic for next week.
Okay.
If you want, I have a topic. I have a teaser topic. I've got a season one, which is effectively your job is to build the most interesting matchup between any two players in history, even if they didn't play at the same time, even if they didn't have a rivalry. Right. So much like this question we just had, what is the most interesting rivalry you can build out of any two players from League history?
By the way, I
mission
can
starts
see
there.
why you also thought of that, because I will say one of the problems when you try to do the rivalry one here, this is the downside of Worlds qualification, is there's a lot of rivalries that can't be between regions because those players didn't meet enough to be like one time. Like obviously looking for Svika, it's amazing narrative. It happened like 2 times ever or something at the end of the beginning of their careers. The opposite when you'd want, so we never got the real Manny Pacquiao versus Mayweather fight in that one, did we? Never got it.
And again, like for this as well, you choose a moment in time at a player's career for this as well. So it's not just across the breadth, but choose a moment in time. I say like I want to just grab this guy out of this period of time, put them against another player. If you want to make it a team versus team thing, because again, the job is to make it the most interesting. Whatever constraints you need to do to make that the most interesting, you put them in place. I think that will be a fun one to do.